Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Kyle McCord in the shotgun. Train him in the backfield with him. McCord spins, looks to throw. He heaves this one deep down the middle of the field. Marvin Harrison tracks, and he's got it at the 25 of the Hilltoppers. And Harrison's going to take it to the house for a long-distance touchdown through the air. The high school teammates hook up on a 75-yard pass play. Kyle McCord to Marvin Harrison, 20-10, Ohio State.
And 6, Daniels. Long snap count here. He will get the football. He will look middle. Then he will launch it towards the end zone right side. Malik Neighbors over the shoulder catch. Touchdown. Fighting Tigers. 33-yard strike. Second score of the day for Neighbors.
Buffs down by 8. Shador steps into the pocket. Flushed to the near side. Rifles it downfield. Jimmy Hart Jr. at the 14. Eludes a man to the end zone. Touchdown. Touchdown, Colorado. Hawk the horn. Jimmy found the end zone. And we're 2 points away from a tie game with 36 seconds remaining.
Harvard to pass. He's got his man. Touchdown. It's Bedoni for the second straight week. First collegiate start. Harvard's got it right side. Harvard, touchdown. What a night.
Yeah, we played a lot in the first half on our side of the field, and that was, their punter, I thought, did a great job, and Ed brought a punt rush the one time we didn't get there, but we got some, and so then the next one, down there backed up, which led to points. I thought that was a pivotal drive, and I thought the 90-yard scoring drive, obviously, to take it 90 yards and just kind of be ball control. Those were 2 good drives for us that were pivotal in the game.
Here we go on another great week of the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla, a jam-packed football Monday. Doesn't quite have the same ring as Football Friday, but maybe more
football.
maybe more appropriate. We got more to get to.
My voice sucks, so bear with me.
Well, listen, it's a busy season for you.
Busy season.
You got your day gig, right?
Yeah.
And we got coaching, which I saw you getting after some people on the sideline.
Friday?
Yeah.
Did I really?
So honest, there was one where I don't even remember who it was. There was a punt, and somebody grabbed a punt that they should have just ran away from.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And it was like right in front of you.
Yeah, and I'm our punt return guy. So full disclosure, like we had to talk through that as like a I can tell you this. I think how the sausage is made. We had to process through that as a staff, because I said what I said. I said, "What are you thinking?"
Yeah.
Can't remember. That's about the gist of it, right?
I think you literally said, "What are you doing?"
And he kind of gave me the nod, and I let it ride.
Yeah.
But then he got over to Coach Lamanji, and it was another conversation.
Yeah.
And then he got over to his DB coach, and it was another conversation. And that was on the heels of us kind of walking him through crack replacing all night, right? Because that's what Millard North wanted to do. They wanted to crack and have him fit in the run game. And so I think he was a little frustrated.
Sure.
And did not receive that very well. So we had to nip that in the bud immediately. And he's an amazing kid.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as hard, but we were like bracing ourselves. We were kind of, okay, this is the direction that we're going to take in the morning. We're going to let, cooler heads prevail. But we're not one of those staffs, thank the Lord. Like, we don't let that stuff fester.
Sure. Yeah. You just,
and I think that's why our culture, what it is what
right?
we're just not, I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
You sit your ass down, right? Like, yeah. I'm dead. Listen, I'm dead dog serious. Like, you will go sit down, but we'll own what we have to own too. Like, we're not going to try to pull the power play. So it's all about it's relationship building.
Sure.
I just told that to one of our.
If the kid trusts you,
yeah,
even if you don't approach
you can come at me raw, right? Like, if I know you care about me,
right?
I've told you, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you'll say some things to me sometimes. I'm like, hey man, who are you talking to? But I know, right?
Yeah.
Like it's cool.
You know, it comes from a place of caring, right?
I was fully expected for you to somehow rehash Jeff Sims today, and I was like, you know what? I'm here for it.
Well, listen, and I'm sure we'll get to it, right? Because it's the quarterback position.
I do think people didn't understand the context of how last week went.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not an advocate of one or the other. I'm an advocate of what I think the coaches are thinking. And to this day, like right now at this minute, I still think they're thinking it.
What?
You're like, oh shoot, curveball. If you tell me,
so lay that out for me one more time. So if you think they're still thinking,
I think they trust the process and the development, and I think,
but that can be true of both Jeff Sims and Heinrich Haarberg.
Yeah. Right? Now it's, but two things can be true at once,
right?
Too,
yeah.
Right. So
I'm curious. I mean, let's just jump into the quarterback.
No, let's not. Let's not.
Why not?
Because I was enjoying the weekend talk.
All right. So Westside,
at least you're wearing the right gear today.
What? Because you're mad I was wearing Central gear the other day?
No, I like Central.
Yes.
It just was weird on a game day where you had the chance to support your buddy. You went full-fledged Metro.
So you
didn't even go Millard North. But if there is another, I take that. So back. It's close between North and Central.
I went neutral because you're my dude. Obviously, got West Side. I got my buddy over on Millard North, and I'm a Millard North guy. So
by the way, he's great.
I love Jermaine. Jermaine's a terrific dude.
He and I talk and I hope it doesn't make people mad. That I talk to other people from other staffs, because even yesterday,
if it makes them mad, they're childish.
Even yesterday, I gave Hoskinson a hug. He and I talked for 15 minutes, and it's a really good
secret.
And I love his kids too. Yeah. So, he's got a couple. That youth game yesterday. I said Little League. It's not Little League. That youth game.
Yeah.
We'll have several players at the high school level in a couple years that will be being recruited.
Yeah.
Yes.
What age group is that?
So that was 8th grade.
So that's Micah's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Very high caliber.
Yeah.
Shoot, he's had one guy. First of all, it's good to see his son playing. So I like seeing Sam out there, but Hoskinson. But he's got one player that I've been a fan of since he's been like 8, 7. No, I'm dead serious. This little dude, and he's not little anymore, but this kid is a menace. He's like an absolute menace.
So you're just out here like scouting elementary kids?
No, so it's not for me. Listen, no. They're Elkhorn through and through. Like I don't care where kids go to school.
Yeah.
But I root for this dude. Like he is an absolute terror.
Yeah.
And they kind of moved him. He used to play middle. Listen, this is crazy.
Okay.
He reminds me a little bit of Caleb because when he was young, like this guy hits anything that moves.
Yeah.
Right. But he played in the middle.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure it's for the same reasons, right? You don't want to be able to run away from him. You don't want to put him on a side.
Right. Where you can avoid him.
So, Caleb played linebacker his whole youth career, which is, smart dad, right? He's going to grow up to be a linebacker. But anyway, Eichmeyer, he's just a terror.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him yesterday and whatever. There's a lot of his guys, so I'm giving hugs and I'm dapping him up after. And I asked him, I told Micah, we were sitting in the car going home. I said, hey man, I hope that are you cool with that? He's like, no. I know you're Mr. Kid friendly, Mr. Kid friendly. I said, yeah. I said, sometimes it bothers
other people.
Caleb.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's a little different in high school too, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. It
gets a little more serious in terms of.
So when I'm talking to Coach Chavez, Coach Petito,
yeah,
I just, because those guys kind of brought me into the fold,
Yeah.
And so that's just respect.
Well, and they've been especially Petito, he's been doing it forever.
Yeah.
Right. You don't do that job for that long without caring about kids. So
and 98% of the time, I get along, I haven't burned too many bridges.
I was telling somebody the other day, and obviously Millard North's struggling right now, even though they've got some talent. I was talking to your SRO at the game.
Oh, Kilgore?
Yeah.
He is
terrific. I talked to him for most of the first half.
So full disclosure.
Yeah.
I'll go up to West Side
just
to see him.
Yeah.
I won't talk to anybody else in that building. I mean, the occasional student, but that he is.
And that's funny because your wife works in the building.
Yeah, Team Kilgore. He's sensational.
No, terrific.
And so that's really that's why I love OPD so much, because most of those guys, a lot of them are my friends, right? That went to school that turned out to be law enforcement.
Yeah.
But a lot of those guys I met in buildings.
Sure. Yeah.
Like as the resource officers.
Yeah.
So, the Bonhams, the Martina, there's just been some great SROs in buildings.
Yeah.
And sometimes they set your school's culture a little bit,
Oh, sure.
or they reflect it. And
Yeah.
Kilgore's a stud.
Well, our guy Jermaine's OPD now too.
Is that going to be so?
You didn't know that?
So here's the funny thing.
Yeah.
Coach Petito said, well, he's all grown up now. He's getting a job in the real world. And
yeah.
But he never said what.
Yeah. He finished academy a couple months ago.
Oh, man.
So he's out and doing it.
Good people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm talking with, I'm hanging out with Kilgore at the game or whatever. And,
he fell out of a plane?
Yeah, that's what he told me.
Yeah, that dude should be 3 inches taller.
That's what he said, 1.5 inches, but yeah.
Hey,
that's incredible. He's like, yeah, I probably should be dead. And I was like, yeah, no kidding. You fall off a plane. That's generally what happens.
He's telling you.
No, he was a good hang. But I'm
unlike kids.
Except Micah. Micah's cool. Micah can come hang out whenever.
Oh shoot.
No, it's funny. So Darcy was here from Dingman's on Friday for the breakfast blitz. Which
Shane, you going to see her today?
You get an oil change?
I am getting an oil change.
There
but
we go.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna go where I got.
Spit it out, man.
I'm gonna go where I got the vehicle because it's a free one. So.
Okay.
Today, so.
All
right. So you're.
Well, it's not like she's hanging out at the different locations anyway. So.
So I'd probably miss her anyway.
Yeah. Hey, how about her two princesses? Did you see those two? Boy, she got her hands full with those.
So
two.
That's the funny part. So I go over and talk to her after the show, and she's like, "I'm sorry, I know you don't like kids." And like every time they say anything, I was like, "It's okay. Like as long as they're not mine, as long as I'm not like responsible for them, you know."
I saw your boy Happer on Saturday, and I reminded him that he hates dogs. So it's like that's why you guys get along.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You guys are anti.
Hating dogs is way worse than hating kids. Hating kids at least makes sense.
Wow, tough.
Hating dogs is totally illogical.
Yeah, Kilgore is an absolute stud.
Oh man. But yeah, so I meet up with Avery from Hurrdat at the game on Friday.
Yeah.
And we're kind of talking through some.
Wait, the legend of Avery Howard grows, isn't it crazy?
What do you mean?
It was recognizable. So everybody's,
yeah,
they're just like, oh man, and where'd you find her? How'd you find her? I was hearing it in Lincoln. I was hearing it on West Side, and I was like, as long as you folks are being professional, I'm cool.
It's like, well, we found her down the street. She was playing soccer at Omaha.
Just hanging out.
No, but so we're there and we're talking kind of about Miller North, and I'm like, I can't remember if I was telling her or Kilgore. I was like, yeah, Coach Petito's the only coach that school has ever had. And he's like, what do you mean? And I go, he opened Miller North.
Yeah.
He is the only football coach that place has ever had. And obviously, I mean, being a Miller North guy, I would like to see it go a little bit better for him than it is right now. But like people can't even wrap their minds around it. It's over 40 years ago.
Yeah, 44, I think. 43.
43. I think the school opened in 80.
Yeah.
So 43 years. I think the first graduating class was like 82.
Even I can do that math. How you like them apples?
I think I like apples.
That was on this weekend too.
Good Will Hunting?
Yeah.
Terrific movie.
Yeah, I don't think I could sit through it again. It was fantastic. But of course, I saw almost the same part that I saw last Tuesday when I told you that Will made fun of Robin Harris's painting in his office.
Robin Williams.
What did I say?
I said Robert Harris. That's not a person.
Cat Williams?
Not Cat Williams.
Robin Harris, the comedian, RP.
I don't know.
Baby's kids. Can't hang, huh? Small world. Well, where's Baby? Yeah, so I mean, it's just the relationship building thing, because that's kind of how this started.
Yeah.
Ultimately, when we get to talking quarterbacks, is going to be what this is about with Nebraska against La Tech. You don't get what you got from Harburg or Sims practicing, or Anthony Grant's reemergence, or Fedoni's patience,
Mm-hmm.
or give me another Tommy Hill,
Or Bayer.
100% without
Yeah.
relationships.
Oh, without a doubt. And
You can coach and talk a certain way through stressful situations
if you have the
you
relationship.
have good relationships.
Well, I mean, here's a terrific example. We're what, a week into the show, right?
Yeah.
When we first started, Nebraska just lost to Minnesota. You got back at like 3:00 in the morning. I was here until like midnight.
Mhm.
And so I'm sitting here just staring at my computer, trying to prep or whatever. And you come in and you're like, hey, I'm going to need a little more out of you than kind of what you're showing right now.
God, you remember that?
Oh, 100%. And I go,
Well, you didn't really say anything at the time.
yeah, I'm just like, okay. And I'm sitting there kind of trying to figure out what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think I probably said something again before the show started.
You did. Yeah, you said something a couple times. And I'm sitting there, and had that come that way from someone else, we probably would have had a problem. Right?
That's awesome.
Like we just would have, right? But I trust that you were coming from a place of like, hey, this is what's going to make us different.
Yeah, it's encouragement, right?
Yeah.
I was like, this is what we do.
Yeah,
right.
You were in coach mode.
Yeah.
You were in like, hey, tough love mode. And I was in like, hey, I'll turn it on when the mics come on mode.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
So that was really only like 6 minutes of total time.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Like,
and it was a long time ago. I'm not sure why you committed that to memory. That's interesting.
I remember almost everything.
That's interesting. Because all I really wanted.
You just wanted a little energy.
Yep. It was total coach mode.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, listen, our daubers are down.
And then I asked.
People are piling on.
Yeah.
I think like there's a lot of misconceptions out there. I was like, this is what's going to make our show different.
Mm-hmm.
Like we got to think clearly.
We got to cut through the nonsense.
Yeah. Right. Like,
yeah.
Let's not just, waste
time.
And listen,
yeah.
and full disclosure, like I'm, I'm assuming, based on your body language.
Yes. Yeah.
Because normally you say the same thing every time I come in the show, right? But just that day, it was like, head down. I'm like, no. I said, well, anyway, we're not dealing with this. We are not going to have this, right?
Absolutely,
like, we're going to be different. So and it's in my personality, so I apologize.
No, you're all good.
But my glass stays half full. Like I called a timeout yesterday. I asked our head coach, I said, hey, can I get a timeout?
Mm-hmm.
We're like 4 minutes into the game.
Okay.
The worst start ever.
Yeah.
2 long plays called back. We lost our starting quarterback. We gave up a touchdown. We gave him the ball inside the 5. We gave up a touchdown off a bobbled snap. It was like a 50-50 ball in the back of bad start, intense game. I said, hey, can I just use a timeout? He's like, sure. It's like, thank you. Called timeout, brought everybody in, and said a few words. I'm like, hey, listen, just calm down, right? This good starts, bad starts, whatever. Just control the things that you can control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I said, this gives you an opportunity to be different, right? And I remember one of our assistant coaches were like, did you just use a timeout down 6?
4 minutes into the game.
It might have not even been 4 minutes.
Yeah.
It was maybe less. And I go, yeah. I said, hopefully that won't come back to bite me. But I just think we needed to
chill out a little bit.
Because it was, it was all over the place, man.
Yeah.
But that's just the coach thing in me.
Yeah.
And I know it drives people crazy. I just was talking to a guy that's being recruited. And I didn't look at it as like a coach talking to a player or an adult talking to a kid.
Person,
it was just like I basically told him what I would tell anyone if they had to attack life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, because that's going to come up a lot over these next couple of weeks.
For sure.
With this next recruiting cycle and people are going to make decisions and all of a sudden these schools are all on the gas pedal. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes with recruiting. And so And it works the other way too, right? Sometimes guys that are committed, they need to step their game up too.
Yeah, sometimes it cools off a little bit.
Listen, I'm going to say this once and I'm going to move on. Until you sign on the dotted line, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Until you sign on the dotted line, anything can happen. That's for guys that haven't committed. That's for guys that are committed. Right now, it's all just a verbal.
Yeah.
It's hear my heart. It's all just a verbal.
It's like dating versus being married, right?
Yeah.
Till you sign that.
Although divorce rate would tell you something different, but
Well, so would transfer rates. I mean, am I wrong?
I'm done.
Transfer portal is the divorce of college football, right?
Yeah, it's amazing how some people have made that work. It was a heck of a weekend in college football.
It really has been. Before we get into that, though, we'll get into more Nebraska. I do want to pick your
Should
brain.
I tweet the lineup out? Because I'm late.
I am too. I'm working. I retweeted Hurrdat Sports. Make sure you follow them.
If
as well.
you don't get it right, there's not a snowball's chance in heck I am. Like, I totally need somebody to be like, hey, DB.
Hey, get the lineup out.
What are we doing?
Well, we're going to talk with Sam McKewon at 8 o'clock as we do every Monday.
I saw Sam this weekend. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I saw him.
Well, it's because we're going to talk to him today. It's all good. And then we're going to talk to our guy, Russell Baxter, for Pro Football Guru, a little bit of NFL. Before we do that, we're going to talk to our guy, Brett, here on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. Wants to talk about Heinrich Haarberg. I wonder, I mean, that's a big deal this week.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking quarterbacks.
Brett, what do you got for us? Brett, you there, bud?
Hey, yeah, hey. So you guys are talking about relationships with Haarberg, and I think this game really proved that, like, the culture is setting in, right? Like, Haarberg might be a great Nebraska quarterback, but his ability to come in, compete, be mentally tough, and then see Jeff Sims and Chuba Purdy handle him the way they did on the sidelines was more, to me, indicative of his success than his skill. Now, on the flip side, did you guys watch Colorado game?
Absolutely.
Sure
At all?
Yeah.
So full disclosure, I'm going 1 mile an hour on Highway 6 because police wouldn't let me on 80. I have that on my phone pumping through my Bluetooth.
So maybe I'm just
2 mile an hour.
a dummy and don't know football very well, but to me, if with Haarberg or Sims, I feel like that right now with who Nebraska has, Colorado State kind of shown what maybe Nebraska could do. One hot read, dump it to the tailback, and that might open up some run game or whatever else. But that to me was interesting to see Colorado State do that. And then me thinking about, wow, look at Nebraska's skill set in space, look at our quarterbacks. That might be something good. And then also, so how's that silent commit from Caleb to Nebraska? How'd that go for you on Saturday game?
I keep hearing that, man. So about 7 of these schools that called the other day, they haven't heard that. I keep hearing that silent commit thing. Somebody's got to help me out, man. Send me a memo.
And, hey, then the last thing is, Ravi, the best. Oh, shit.
Brett, I don't know if you know this. Until about a month ago, a lot of people in Nebraska didn't think Caleb was very good.
Yeah, well, hey, Ravi, the best player to ever come out of Miller North was Jake Galusha. He knocked me in the shadow roll about 3 years in a row at North.
Zero. Argument from me.
I know about Jake Galusha.
Arguably one of my favorites. God, he was unreal.
We'll get to more Benning and Lulla coming up next.
We'll be right back in 5 minutes. We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Yeah, I think he practiced well on Tuesday, and then practiced well on Wednesday. Jeff really worked his tail off to come back and be ready to go, and showed an unbelievable team by being willing to practice on Friday. Was willing to go out there and be the third team quarterback, emergency quarterback. But I just think after we got done with Wednesday, we knew that it would be Heinrich just because he was practicing pretty well. And then we got in the game, and Northern Illinois completely changed. They did some things just for Heinrich. I mean, they ran up the field, and so they really tried to take away the zone read game for us. They really tried to take away the counter game. Some of the things that we're pretty good at, they took away. So I thought Sat and Donnie made some really good adjustments on the sidelines and found some formations that were good for us, and we were able to run the ball at the end.
Well, I think Shane was telling us where we need to go in this next segment with Nebraska and the quarterback position. This is the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. We talked a lot about just kind of the weekend in general, a lot of high school football in that first segment, but obviously Nebraska gets the first win of the Matt Rhule era, makes people calm down a little bit, take a deep breath.
Out of breath, Brian. I need everybody to calm down.
Is he a big Aaron Rodgers guy?
No, he had one of the great. He had this was some years ago, man. I don't even, was it probably 17, 18 maybe, Shane?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
And out of breath, Brian was just like, I need everybody to calm down. It was the way he said it.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what we were having a meltdown over at that time as a fan base, but it was something.
2018 would have been Frost starting 0-6, maybe?
It was somewhere around there. I don't know.
Maybe.
It was a long time ago. That was about the time we had a guy break himself a phone call from the bathroom. He said, I'm in the bathroom right now. I'm at work. I was like, wow, commitment. But I think Coach Rhule told you everything you needed to know about who they are in probably that one soundbite. Do you know why?
What's that?
Because we didn't practice against an odd front, so we had to scrap our game plan. We didn't hear. We panicked. We didn't hear any blame. We saw credit. And I preface that by saying I'm the last guy so far in this local media. I don't unnecessarily pile on. And when I do tell you the positive things that Frost and that last regime did, like I'm not one of those guys that I'm going to say this needs that pound of flesh. But I do like in situations like this, it's important to double down on what your culture is. So you heard two things: accountability and praise.
Yeah.
This went on. Shout out to this guy and this guy for blank, because he told you last week, and we rolled our eyes, that he felt like Sat was kind of rounding into form in terms of understanding who this offense wanted to be.
Sure.
Right?
Well, and then it gets more challenging because then you put in a different quarterback, right?
And which is why I told you on Friday and Thursday, I said, this is going to sound crazy, but I hope the quarterback, I hope it doesn't look a lot different, because that lets me know that they want to play the same way. Like their identity is coming. And
so it looks a little different in how it's executed, right? Because Harburg is a different player than Sims.
But not really.
Well, I think stylistically he's a little different. Like they're both running quarterbacks, but I don't think Harburg has.
He's not as dynamic. Yeah.
Harburg's not going to hit the home runs with his legs the way Sims can, right? Sims can crease you and go.
And Sims is a better passer too, right? So that's sidearms. You're not going to make a living with some of that stuff that they were doing on Saturday night. So just focus on not necessarily the micro and the player, but the macro in terms of how they're trying to skin the cat.
Right. Yeah, kind of the concepts they're putting out there.
Yes,
things
indeed.
like that. I thought it was a pretty similar game plan from that standpoint.
I'm with you.
I think they probably went, I don't know if they would have gone as QB run heavy with Sims, but it was the same types of plays.
Oh, no. Au contraire, mon frère. I don't even know what language that is. I just know.
That's French.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, je m'appelle.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I am not bilingual. I just remember French.
A little bit of French class?
Yes. I don't know. Remember, we were whining a ton.
Yeah.
Old DB included about so much quarterback run game.
Well, I was
against Minnesota.
I wasn't.
Yes, you were.
No, I wanted.
No, I know. I'm about to listen.
I'm about the only person.
I'm gonna give you your flowers. I really am, because this young man said, doubling down on what Coach Rhule said, is he one of 11? Like last time I checked, you want to use all 11 guys. You're going to carry the ball. You can carry the ball. I mean, he's a ball carrier, right? And this gentleman next to me, I use that term loosely. It's only because I love the block lettering, and everybody said it looked like Indiana. I think that is so sweet.
That's my favorite one.
That is so sweet. Yeah. I'm with you on that. So nice quarter zip or full zip. But I say that to say, like, you said, if Crouch can run it X amount of times, why can't Sims? He's bigger and stronger. You've been on this hill from the jump. Even me, I say even like I'm special. I'm not. Well, depends on how you look at the word. We'll see what my IQ is lately. I may qualify for a 504. I don't know. You educators know what I mean there. I don't know if I'd be on an individual plan, but I probably would need a 504.
I had one.
Certain benchmarks.
I had one for the diabetes you have to have.
Really?
Yeah, to make sure you're taken care of.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a total 504 guy.
Yeah.
All right, so listen. The quarterback run game was something I was a little up in arms about because –
and I understand this.
I want running backs to run the ball. Because when running backs run the ball and you have QB run game, it keeps your offensive coordinator sharp. Because if you're always sitting around waiting for your QB to break one, as I've said for years, dynamic quarterback run game can make your offensive coordinator lazy. I mean, you just wait for him to make a play.
The best example of this was Taylor Martinez, right?
That's when I birthed this whole philosophy.
Because you were just waiting for him to crease one for 80, right? Pretty much the entire offense was just waiting for him to break one.
I remember I was talking to one of my aces, Jason Hurd. Shout out Any Elite Nutrition. We got into this huge discussion. A couple of football heads too. My buddy Aaron Sim. We used to bring him on the show in my former life. We called him the professor. I mean, smart football guys, right? And they're like, well, correct me if I'm wrong. Explosive plays, basically, this was way before analytics nerds, but analytics nerds were just being birthed.
Yeah.
Right. I was still arguing about war on message boards and stuff in baseball. No, I'm telling you this. And these dudes are my buddies today, right? This is like 05.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
04, 05.
I was a big VORP guy.
And so, oh, God. So I'm like, hey, listen, I get it. You want chunk plays from the QB run game. I said, but if they aren't designed QBs runs or they're just because he made a play, like you're not going to make a living off what he did against Wisconsin in the Big 12 championship game or Big 10 championship game. No. Right. It's dynamic. Just like Crouch couldn't make a living versus what he did against Iowa, even though
incredible play.
It was an incredible play. Yeah. The improv and he'll bail us out. You just can't hang your hat on that, right?
No,
so
you have to have a plan, and then the improv is the bonus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of, honestly, one of the things I'm most impressed about with Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes, because you could get real lazy with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, for sure.
You could get real.
But you know what? I think they kind of did, which is why Bieniemy, maybe he's a bad interview, I don't know, which is why Bieniemy, I think, couldn't get the run that he wanted early. Because people equated him with Mahomes. Oh, that's Mahomes.
Yeah.
Oh, I could do that with Mahomes.
It's like, no, you couldn't. Not everybody can.
He's got Andy Reid.
You see that? Well, Andy Reid is a fair maybe criticism of Bieniemy.
I understand.
How much is it Andy Reid? How much is it Bieniemy? Because the most amazing thing that Andy Reid ever did was turn Michael Vick into the guy we all thought he could be.
Yeah. So
that's his best coaching job.
So let me just. Again,
but to land the plane.
Hopefully, this is one of the reasons why you like listening to the show. Just different kind of insights, right? So while you're hounding on me about that,
about QB run game,
yep. In my heart of hearts, I know that I've told people privately that one of the guys that I'm watching the most close, and I think I maybe admitted this out loud a couple weeks ago, is Coach Satterfield. Not because he's anything other than his track record says to me, this may take some time.
Sure.
And he's probably the most different of all the coaching personalities.
Ooh, yeah, probably. When you listen to him, he seems different.
Right?
Yeah.
Very perceptive. Air dap high five.
I probably wouldn't have been able to verbalize that, but now that you say it.
I told people, I was like, that's the guy that I'm watching the most close. But do you know why in part?
Why?
Because I didn't love the quarterback situation like some other people did from afar. So I felt like he had his work cut out.
And he's done some work.
We have no idea.
We don't know yet.
Well, I tell you, we'll get into it some more, but you held your ground.
I did. I love QB run game.
And apparently Eric Crouch does too. I was air dapping him from the press box Saturday.
More Benning and Lulla coming up next.
We will be back in 4 minutes.
That's the culture we want to have. Putting games away and win games. So a lot of things obviously in between. A couple guys go down with injuries. Amir went down.
Sam McKewon.
Really proud of the way that the team's fit together. I think we've gotten better each week, and certainly wasn't perfect tonight, but a lot of really good things. Probably played like a team, which was really important to me. That first turnover down on the red zone, defense went out there and didn't stop, holding them to a field goal. That's really the culture we want to have.
We will be back in 3 minutes.
96 yards rushing in the fourth quarter, that's the culture we want to have. Putting games away and win games. So a lot of things obviously in between. A couple guys go down with injuries. Amir went down. Cam went down.
Here is the...
Looking at the middle. Touchdown, Nebraska. Gabe Irvin, his first touchdown of the season.
We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents The Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Give up the middle. Touchdown, Nebraska. Gabe Irvin, his first touchdown of the season.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here.
Already?
I know, man, time's flying by here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. You can join us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, 888-638-4876. We're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, the H&H Chevrolet studio. And it's you can also hit us up on email, thedbshow@hurrdatsports.com. We keep an eye on that one, so if you want to send us an email, go ahead and hit us up there. And I imagine we'll have some feedback as we get kind of further into this quarterback conversation here. Because,
is that what we're doing?
I mean, it needs to be talked about, right? It's a big deal.
Was it Bruno Mars and I Can Buy You Flowers?
Yep, that was
Is it
Bruno
Bruno?
Mars. Yeah.
I'm kind of more of a gorilla guy.
I don't love Bruno Mars. It's fine.
If you ever leave me, baby. Collide. It's a song. Leave the morphine.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that song.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I like, I'm a sap.
You like sappy songs?
Yeah. So I'm kind of mad at you.
Okay.
But I'm not really.
What'd I do this time?
Because you're harping on this QB run game and the turnover thing.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to you what I felt like the coaches were saying.
Okay.
And you and my man, Jeff Saturday. It's not really Jeff Saturday.
Just
I'm
Saturday.
A couple guys.
We should just call him Jeff from now on.
my name is Jeff. Again, that's a movie reference. I don't know. Like you get like just big on the wait and pick a different guy. And I said, full disclosure, if you ask me personally,
yeah,
I probably would have put Harburg in for a series
against Colorado.
Yeah, or two or whatever, right?
Just to let Sims chill out a little bit. It seemed like he was shook a little by what was happening.
So this is what Nebraska has to navigate.
Yeah.
And since you're like Norm Chow of the quarterback world right now, Nebraska has to navigate. I don't think you get the sense H2 is going to win you a game. You have to navigate not losing a game.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So do you know what I think you see? You know what I think you see happen now?
You see Harburg against Louisiana Tech?
No,
okay.
I don't. I think if Sims is healthy, Sims will be the guy.
Okay.
And that's just total speculation.
Sure.
This isn't like I have zero.
We have no idea how healthy Sims is. And that's where it starts, right? How healthy is Sims?
I think you could see Sims get ran into the ground.
Because you feel okay about who the backup is.
Knowing that you have
a capable backup.
Yep.
Because I don't want to act like
that would be like,
yeah.
I mean, could I convince you that that's going to be like, because this Coach Rhule told you Saturday night, and I listened to him close. He said, we're a power, what did he say? Spread power option team.
Yeah. I think that's what he.
So the packages you saw on Saturday was what I had seen all offseason.
Yeah. When you were talking about, hey, it's going to be QB run heavy. We're going to see some option. We're going to see a lot of this.
Right.
And
they opened the game up with 32-38 option, which was a staple for us. And he's a good ball handler. He's not quite a smooth operator yet.
Yeah.
Maybe with reps he will be, but some of those you just wanted him to get out around or get underneath and be a little more decisive. But what he is he's a punishing runner. The ball handling got better. I asked Sharpie, I said to Greg, I don't know if this was on air or off air. He remembers everything. So like he's fantastic. Our on air breaks are sensational. But so I think I said to Greg, I think it was on. Nope, it was off air. I go, I don't think he's reading these because some of those are keeps. And he either kind of shrugged or whatever. I known him, he probably made a joke and I laughed. So I think it was off air because he keeps me like.
By the way, when you guys make jokes during the broadcast, it sure does make it a lot more
enjoyable. Dude,
it sure does make it a lot more enjoyable to listen to.
He's hilarious.
Yeah, it's great.
Like,
I love it.
He's a good dude. So, and Ben is funny too, right? Because he's kind of sarcastic. He's he's like King Snark. And sometimes I wish I could be like that. So I just laugh, right? But so I wasn't sure. But then to hear Coach Rhule say, hey, listen, the 4-by, it was kind of football jargony. I wrote down exactly what Coach Rhule said because, of course, I'm a weirdo. But I wanted to make sure we get it right because it was kind of football heavy.
Yeah, when you get a little technical, you want to get it right.
He said finding the 4-wide zone read and then the 22 personnel motion with the wing on stretch run lead was fun. A lot of football in there.
Yes. Yeah.
But the stretch, the lead, like that's outside zone with option principles sprinkled in. It is very hard to defend because one is in your kitchen, like running right down a hallway, 3D style. The other is lateral. You think they're the same because it looks like edge run game,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. So they found something.
Right. Yeah.
And he's telling you, listen, NIU changed some things. You see them smacking people in the open field, and how their ends got to play. They got some Sunday guys over there. Don't kid yourself.
Well, and Rhule said that last week, right? Like their defensive front genuinely really good.
They got some Sunday fellas.
Yeah.
So for Nebraska to feel their way along offensively, that's absolutely who they're going to be. And I get it, right? I'm not going to say, well, this is NIU or whatever, and I'm not a transitive property guy, but Boston College showed you that they're capable of playing good football.
Yeah.
The Huskies gave them all they wanted and then some, right?
Yeah. Come out with a W.
It's a very capable team, a very capable football team.
Absolutely.
Nebraska's evolution in the run game and the power run game is going to be something else.
Yeah, that has to be encouraging, I think, if you're a Nebraska fan, because you saw them, stick with the run game, first and foremost. Didn't bail on it.
I think 22 handoffs between everybody else not named the quarterback.
I believe that's correct. I
need Jamie.
You saw them get better in the run game as the game went on.
Can you help me real quick?
What's that?
14-7.
21.
1.
22.
1.
23.
Okay, so 23 runs. I should have been able to do that
outside of quarterback.
Outside of Hurrdat.
Yeah, because they ended up with 44 total rushes for like 224.
Yes, sir.
So
do you know that average?
5-1.
Sick. It's almost like you looked at the stats. That's filthy. It is. And you count Tommy Hill, the non-run, and everybody was moaning and groaning on the reverse.
Yeah.
Hey, if Ford doesn't make that play, he may bang his head on the goalpost.
Sure. Yeah.
That was an unbelievable tackle in the open field. So, of course, you don't love the play call, but when it works, it's like, oh, my gosh, that was –
I'm sure they saw something where they say, hey, if he can make one guy miss, then it's a house call.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And he didn't make the guy miss, and so it looks like a terrible play call. Yeah. But, it's like, we had this big thing against Minnesota with the RPO.
Rasheen Thomas is a flat-out stud. Number 4 for NIU.
Yeah.
It's a real dude. He doesn't make that play, I'm telling you, he'll may still be running.
Right? And so that's, I try – really hard to be cognizant of those types of things when I criticize play calling and stuff like that. I think I tweeted out at one point, Nebraska had run the ball successfully a couple times. It's 3rd and 3, and then they do a little play action pass. I was like, I don't love that.
Are you a good in-game follower, or would you distract me?
I
usually don't catch up with you until after.
Yeah.
But I know who I probably should pay attention to and not, because I know if I'm like, you'll have some strong opinions. And so I don't know if I'm like, can I let that ride?
In the moment, you might get annoyed with me.
Is that okay? Yeah, I don't really.
Fair.
I don't know.
I don't, because I think some of the stuff I say is insightful, but I also get a little emotional sometimes.
Okay.
I'm not like our guy.
That's fair.
I'm not like our guy Jack and Lincoln or anything like that, who like is just tweeting with his heart on his sleeve a little bit.
Oh, Mitchell?
Yeah, Jack Mitchell.
Dude, he's hilarious.
No, but I'm not like that emotional. But I get frustrated, so I'll kind of tweet that.
Have we decided if that's a bit or is that just?
No, I think that's who he is.
Yeah, I got to hang out with you.
I don't know him super well, but I think it's real.
Okay.
Like, he's not always like that, but in games, he genuinely feels that way.
I think he's hilarious.
Yeah. And I'm kind of the same way. Like, most of the time, I'm pretty rational. And then sometimes during games, I get a little up in my feels a little bit. So I don't know if you would love me during games. I generally am not. You'd probably like me more during Nebraska games than you do during Creighton games, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because I know you get a little.
Well, I do remember, like, one time you were like, hey, if you at me and say something dumb, you're going to get blocked. And I was like, Ravi, don't do that. Do you know all the crazy things I have to listen to people say?
I know. I was in a bad mood that day.
Were you?
Yeah.
At least you're honest. So with the QB run game.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things. And I don't know if we get into it with Sam or we get to it after, but I think Nebraska answered a ton of questions, and we've had almost an hour's worth of show, and we haven't even talked about the defense.
Right.
And I'm to the point now.
This is what I expect.
Listen, I'm to the point now, especially with all these. They're not Johnny-come-latelys. There's a couple Johnny-come-latelys. Mm-hmm. Michigan State, Notre Dame. I'm not talking to you, but Like I'm to the point now with in-state recruits.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna need Tony White to stick around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that has to be part of the deal.
In-state recruits, is that code for something? All right.
No, it's code for in-state recruits.
We'll get to Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald up next on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Really proud of the way that the team stood together, and I think that we've gotten better each week. And certainly wasn't perfect tonight, but there were a lot of really good things, and thought they played like a team, which was really important to me. That first turnover down in the red zone, defense going out there and getting the stop, holding them to a field goal. That's really the culture we want to have. And having 96 yards rushing in the fourth quarter, that's the culture we want to have. Putting games away with the run game. So a lot of things obviously in between. Had a couple guys go down with injuries. Ramir went down and Cam went down. Gabe went down at the end, so hopefully they'll all be okay. But a lot of credit to Northern Illinois. I was watching that Florida State-BC game today, seeing BC almost beat Florida State. After seeing these guys beat BC, it would be a battle, and I thought our guys hung in there and did a good job.
Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald leads us off on hour number 2 of the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
We are doing just fine. Sam, let's just jump right into this because there's a lot going on after a win against Northern Illinois, first and foremost having to do with the quarterback position. As you look at all of the data available to us, right? Jeff Sims, 2 games against Power 5 opponents, Heinrich Harburg, 1 game against a Group of 5 team, although I think we all believe a fairly solid Group of 5 team. What's the most fair way to kind of compare these 2 guys and what we've seen from them so far this season?
Oh man, I think one fair way to think about it is, who kept the ball out of harm's way, but I think you have to mitigate that with obviously the environment that Jeff Sims played in versus the environment that Harburg played in.
Mm-hmm.
One of those environments was a lot easier to play in than another. I think you can assess big plays. They both made big plays. I think they both did. Harburg had a nice throw to Marcus Washington. The 33-yard play didn't involve Harburg a ton. That was a great play call to Alex Bullock. But, Harburg got the ball out there. I thought did a nice job with that. Sims had his own big plays that he made that were his and deserves credit for. I think you get a sense of what teammates how they reacted, what they did. Did they respond to the backup? Seemed like they did, but only Coach Rhule and his staff really know the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to see it on the field; it's another thing to see it in practice. Things like that. And I think you have to assess the health of the starter too. I mean, Sims isn't 100%, and you feel like you can go out and play and win a football game against Louisiana Tech with the backup. Then I think I'm not saying it's calling kicking the can down the road, but I think it's saying, hey, let's let the guy get back to 100%, and then we'll make an assessment going into a game that, in order to compete with and beat Michigan, you're gonna have to play really well, and you're gonna have to play really safe. So let's see what Harburg maybe does in another game. Maybe Nebraska wins it, but he turns it over 3 times. That kind of thing. Like let's assess what happens that way. Unless Sims is 100% this week, and then you may have a difficult decision to make.
Sam, when I can hear it in your voice, and you're pretty smart. You've watched this a long time. I think you can understand positivity in the moment and giving flowers, but you understand you want to look at things long term too. Do you get the sense Nebraska thinks like you do, almost in your initial answer to Ravi, where there were some things there that were really good, but then it's ... but. Do you think Nebraska's staff wakes up this morning feeling the same way?
I'm guessing that they had assessed that really well yesterday. I'm guessing that, I'm sure there's a thought process of where do we get better? They can't get caught up in what I suspect will be sort of the I got texts, I'm sure you guys did, emails of people like Heinrich Harburg's the guy. Like, this is the guy that we want to see next week. They won't get caught up in that. I mean, they have to make their own sort of objective. Objective is not quite the right word, but they have to be able to make a sober decision after they've seen the tape and after they see what he did or didn't do in the game, and think about, okay, what did we do to put him in good spots? What can we carry over to the next game? If that interception is caught, in the third quarter, how might that have changed the game? You have to think about those things. Those are all things that you chew on. They're not going to look ahead on Louisiana Tech. They just got to go win that game, and I think they're going to put all their energy toward that. Michigan's trouble enough. You can worry about Michigan in a week. Michigan's not going to change. I think they can make all those assessments. Rhule will probably be somewhat honest today. He didn't go over the top with Harburg on Saturday. I think he knows how that's going to come off, and I think he's mindful of what he says out in public. And I think Jeff Sims had a role in helping Harburg get ready for the game. I mean, I thought Sims was very positive on the sideline. And not every starting quarterback who's banged up is that way. Not all of them. He was. And so I think there's, that game probably said a lot about the staff and about Harburg's teammates. It said a lot about Harburg too. There's some things he did well that I had not seen in spring games, and so he deserves credit for that. He did a nice job with some of the quick throws with the screens. He threw those passes confidently, and I thought that looked real nice. And then the ball was, and I'm not trying to be too harsh here on Sims, the ball was not 3 yards off the ground or 2 yards off the ground. I mean, Harburg threw it up so that people could catch the ball. And I think
Sam,
one of the things with Sims is he's got to get the ball a little bit off the ground, and he's got to just throw it a little higher. And that's probably something people watch. I think Harburg had one pass knocked down, but Sims was having
two.
I think issues with
Not that I'm counting.
Two. There's just the flatness of Sims' arc is to me is something they can work on. I don't think that's a set in stone thing, but I think Harburg, did some things well. I think there's some things he, obviously needs to work on, but he did some things well.
Sam, was there a point in that game defensively where you said to yourself, this is more about Nebraska than it is about Northern Illinois? Was there ever that point, or were you thinking to yourself predominantly, man, Northern Illinois isn't very good offensively?
There were a couple of people next to me that were like, boy, Northern Illinois is not very good. I think Nebraska controls its own standard of hustle and toughness and aggression, and Nebraska has that irrespective of who they're playing. So the play that I described at the beginning of my story going into Sunday was actually kind of a throwaway play. I mean, I think it was 2nd and 15. And, they threw the ball out in the flat to their best player. And, he made Luke Reimer miss, and there were 6 guys running to the ball. And it was, Singleton and Brown and the corner on that side and Chief Porter. Everybody's running. And it's like, this isn't about Northern Illinois. This is about Nebraska. They run to the ball. They hit. They tackle. Their defensive line. And, and I asked Quentin Newsom in the postgame, I'm like, what's it like to kind of cover with this pass rush? Because he hasn't really had the luxury of this kind of pass rush. And, obviously he gave a pretty bland answer, but like this is a different life for a corner. They're able to, they're not having to cover for 7 sets. And, so I think, I think Nebraska's defense is doing things organically. Northern Illinois made some weird play calls early, 3rd and 5, and you're running you're running a little draw into the teeth of the defense. A defense that's given up virtually nothing in the middle of the field, running the ball. That was an odd call. They did some other things that I think were not great. They dropped some passes. They just flat out dropped them. So they didn't play well, but I think Nebraska rattled them. and I think the crowd probably rattled them because Boston College's crowd isn't like Nebraska's crowd. And so, there's things that Nebraska's defense did that they'll carry over to this week. Michigan will be a unique test, but I would say this: I think Nebraska's defense is up for it. I think they're up for that test. I think they're willing to put it on the line and not be intimidated by anything that Michigan's going to put on the field. And Michigan's pretty good, but they're not going to be intimidated by Michigan.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, speaking of that defense a little bit, I'm looking at the snap count sheet and looking at how many different guys are getting in and how many different contributors you have. You've got Cam Lenhart, who comes off 2 sacks against Colorado, only gets 6 snaps this week. Sounds like he got banged up a little bit, but having that level of playmaker all of a sudden removed from the equation, or last week, Ty Robinson obviously doesn't play the first half, and you don't see a drop off. How much different is that from defenses we've seen in the past where it felt like, hey, if they're missing a guy at a key spot, it might be a really big problem? It doesn't seem to have phased this defense basically at all.
Not too much, no. And Newsom's out on the field for pretty much every play. So that was pretty notable. Singleton's out there for everything, although he's a relatively new player. Gifford is, but they do a good job of rotating their defensive linemen around, getting guys on the field who can make plays. I think they've done a really nice job. There's no complaints. I think that they've coached really well at all 3 levels. I think they've got strong position coaches. The players are responding to Knighton. Dvorak, I think, is quite a good coach based on the way he's developed some of the players that they have there now and how Luke Reimer hasn't really lost his step. He's still really good. Evan Cooper in the back end has been able to unlock Deshaun Singleton. Singleton's a good player, and I think he's doing some good things. So is Omar Brown. So I think you just credit that side of the ball, the staff, the coordinator. They're working together. I think Tony White deserves a lot of credit because none of these guys are his position coach hires, and yet everybody seems to be functioning together.
Well, he did get to bring a couple of his guys, though.
He did, and they're in the box, I think. So schematically, they helped him.
Sam, that is Sam, air high five from afar. I'm dead serious, Sam. I'm gonna tell you why. I always shoot you straight. I said the level of communication, this is after the Minnesota game, the level of communication and how folks handle, Ravi, did I not say this?
You did.
Handle themselves on the sidelines between offense and defense is important. The defense seems to be much more on the same page as the offense. A lot of the reasons why, Sam, the communication style between the headsets and the sidelines 100% matters when you have to make on the field adjustments. It totally matters. You saying that he has his guys in the box totally matters. When you're a good giver of information, how you receive it from others when you have to pass it along secondhand is critical. Right?
Agreed. Yeah. I think that's helped him a lot because it allows it. In some ways, they're well paid analysts, but it's freed them up a little bit, I think, to kind of coach on the sidelines because he basically has his knowledge base, seeing the overarching worldview. I think on the offensive side of the ball, a lot of those guys are down on the box. I think Josh Martin, the tight ends coach, is up in the box, and that's fine. I think there's, for example, on that same drive where they had the 6 or 7 guys running the ball, on 1st and 15, Nebraska shifts into a blitz based on the guy hadn't even motioned yet. And then the guy motions over, and they had already shifted into the blitz that was going to go right to Rocky Lombardi rolling out to his right. They already knew what he was doing. And it's impressive. Like they when you watch that defense, you see guys kind of moving in and out, and they know where they're going. The offense doesn't know where they're going, and it all sort of fits together. It doesn't mean that they're perfect. There were moments against Colorado, especially late in that game, where, Colorado found a couple of things. That's a good offensive coordinator in Colorado, and he's smart too. And Michigan will find some things too, especially with Jim Harbaugh back. But, man, it's complex, and they do a really good job. And I think that defense can hold up over the course of a year based on the number of guys they're playing and also the defense they're playing. Bob Diaco ran a 3-4 back in 2017, but he was asking players to do some things in space, and they were 273 pounds. And I'm not trying to defend Bob Diaco, because Bob's smart, but he was strange. If Bob had some of the players that Nebraska has right now, he probably could have done a few more things that he didn't have the luxury of doing back then, because they had run a 4-3 and Frida Makamoladun and Alex Davis were defensive ends. Trying to ask those guys to play around in space was hard. It was challenging. Well, now Nebraska's got guys like M.J. Sherman and Javen Wright. These guys can play in space, and I think Tony White is doing a heck of a job. And through 3 games, doesn't mean it'll last, but he's certainly earning his money so far.
Hey, Sam, let me ask you this: when you watch Nebraska offensively, and you look at Bonner and Borkacher and Thomas Fedoni and Washington and Kemp and those guys, can you assess what they mean to this football team independent of the quarterback, or do you think those things just naturally have to go together?
That's a good question. I think, sure. I mean, I think you can assess, how they're playing. Well, you can assess how they're blocking. Absolutely. That plays a factor. You can assess, whether they're getting open, how they're adjusting their route. Those things matter. I thought the offense all did a pretty good job of helping Harburg out. Obviously, Harburg's not going to know everything he needs to know, and you can't expect him to in his first start. So I thought they did a nice job of helping them out. I think they made a few plays. Ongoing, obviously, Nebraska needs to continue to find ways to get more skilled talent on the field and so on and so forth. Ideally, Jeff Sims would be a really, really polished and not making any turnovers, and you could use Harburg as a weapon. But that's just not where they were at in the first 2 games. And so some of what Nebraska has to assess is, can we get Jeff Sims back to where we thought he was going to be? Can we get him back to that place? And then can we use Harburg as a side dish, as a player who you can put all over the field, or you can bring in as a runner or a thrower, bring him in as a change of pace player. That's something that I think they're probably going to have to assess. There's all these multiple levels of questions, right? So you have the moment right in front of you, which is Louisiana Tech. Man, it'd be good to get another win, because you're trying to think about, hey, how do we get this team to continue momentum before they play the number 2 or 3 team in the country? And then you're thinking about, what does this look like for the week after Louisiana Tech? Then you're looking at, what does this look like for the rest of the season? And then what does it look like in the out years? As you're imagining. So you have to imagine all those things kind of at once when you're a head coach. And even though you focus on the moment, there's always going to be a moment during the course of the week where you're looking at a Harburg and go like, could this be our guy for the next 2 or 3 years? Or, you're always assessing those things as you go along, because when you build a program, you're not just building the week, you're building the whole thing. And a quarterback is huge to that discussion. I'm a Bears fan, and I think one of the questions that the Bears have to consistently think about now after 2 weeks is, okay, how do we win the next week? Well, that's going to be hard. And then how can we move Justin Fields if we need to move him? And what are we going to, all right, we got to get our scouts out, and we're probably not going to get Caleb Williams unless we're the worst team in the NFL again. So we better go see Drake May, and we better go see this kid named Shedeur Sanders. We better go see if what this kid brings to the table is overwhelms the when he gets upset, he eye gouges a teammate or an opponent. Because you can't do that in the NFL once. A quarterback doing that in the NFL to a defensive lineman is not going to go well for that quarterback. So you got to go out and you got to assess Shedeur Sanders now. If you're the Bears, you have to have all those things in your mind all at once. And it's not quite that way in college, but Nebraska has to assess those things as it goes along too. Are the players around the quarterback good enough, and are they playing well enough to get a full assessment of what that quarterback's capable of?
Sam, let me ask you something along the lines of kind of what we were just describing of the performances independent of the quarterback. Obviously, Fedoni had a couple of big plays in that one, some really good blocks. Do you understand why he may be frustrated or maybe shush the crowd? Because, gosh, I talk to you so much. I feel like you have an unfair advantage, right? You have a really, really, really good pulse of what goes on behind the scenes because you're close to it. And you know what some of the sentiment was about the hype and that it just being hype. I'd say, he hasn't played in 3 years and he pays attention to social media and what people say. And do you give a little grace there for him when he does? Because he clearly said, he intimated those that know in terms of who he was talking to. In that moment for a 20-year-old, do you understand those emotions bubbling over? Because I certainly do.
Yeah, I do. I understand how he would feel a certain way.
I mean, he hasn't been treated the greatest publicly. And I know if people say that that's the vocal minority, okay, but that's who he's hearing from. That's what makes them the vocal portion.
Mm-hmm.
Like I understand fully why he's upset.
I understand. I certainly can place myself in those shoes emotionally. I think the majority of the people in Memorial Stadium are pretty thrilled that he's doing things on
100%. It's just hard, man.
So,
like that's a very mature perspective, right?
Yeah. And so I think this is his first go round. I'm sure it's exhilarating and exciting what he's experiencing right now. I mean, he's got 2 of the team's 4 touchdown catches, and that's pretty cool. And I'm sure, and the other thing that Fedoni's probably not going to say, but is going through is, I don't have Shedeur Sanders as my quarterback, and he wouldn't think of Shedeur Sanders because whatever, but he doesn't have this guy at Colorado who's their tight end, got about 30 catches, and he's pretty good. But I think part of what Nebraska needs to work through, and Fedoni was willing to come to Nebraska and go through all of these growing pains, is do they have guys that can throw the ball to their tight ends and their receivers? They're working through that. And Fedoni's been a Diamond Wolf Nebraska fan his whole life, and I'm sure he's thrilled that things are starting to go the right way. Over time, and this, if he continues to have success, I'm guessing that the frustrations will burn off and it won't be about, the 3 or 4 people out there who doubt him. It'll be about the people who believe in him. But that takes time. And I think, again, I always have expectations that young players are going to go through a range of emotions, good and bad. And that's what Fedoni, I think, is experiencing.
Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
All right.
We got a lot to get to.
Yeah, we
got to dial in. There's some guts in here.
We have a ton to get to, and we will do that coming up next on Benning and Lulla.
We'll be right back in 5 minutes.
Snap back to Mahomes, rolls to his right side. Now throws it for Kelsey, wide open in the end zone. Touchdown! Kansas City, the 47th time that Patrick Mahomes has found Travis Kelsey in the sweet nectar of the end zone. That's an all-time Kansas City Chiefs record, quarterback to a pass catcher. 2nd down and 15 now at the 30.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
I do in the moment. Right now, it doesn't feel too good, but I know how much energy and what that can do to a team. You know, seeing your quarterback going out there full speed ahead, not slowing down, not hesitating, and that's something I've been working on since spring. You know, running physical, because I know that I'm not the prototypical quarterback. You know, I'm heavier, I'm faster, I'm stronger. So I'm going to use that to my advantage and, try and push my teammates along.
Here we go, halfway through a Monday show on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. If you're not all energized and jazzed up and ready to go like we have been since the jump this morning, get yourself over to the Beanery for some coffee. They've got 4 locations, Gretna, Papillion, Ashland, and a new location is coming up in October on half of 168th and Giles. They've got a coffee truck. You can email them at info@thebeanerycoffee.com. They roast their own coffee, locally owned and operated. They're just serving people coffee. That's our friends at the Beanery. We need to get a little bit. Sam gave us a ton of stuff right there, right? That's why we love talking to him. We need to dive a little bit deeper into the quarterback situation here, because Sam brought up a lot of variables that I think are fair to consider. You got your Power 5 opponent versus your Group of 5 opponent. You got hostile road environments versus a little more comforting home environment, although maybe not as comforting if you're Thomas Fidone. But you've got very different situations that each quarterback walked into. But at the same time, you also had very different looking results. So I just want to start with, for me, the thing that I took away from the Heinrich Haarberg performance on Saturday was I just felt comfortable. I wasn't I'm going to go back to Luke McCaffrey for a second here, right? So there was times where Luke McCaffrey would spell Adrian Martinez during his time here at Nebraska.
There was a time.
And when he would come in,
when we heed a certain call,
I don't even know what this is.
Would go to play wide receiver
at Rice.
There are people dying. Shane, what was that? That's not Heal the World.
That sounds like Heal the World.
It was.
Yeah. Okay.
I just totally made that up. By the way, her eyebrows are nowhere near real.
The same color as her hair.
Why is this on this channel?
I don't, because nobody brought me the iPad this morning.
Right. Well, dang, Chauncey, I didn't know I was supposed to be serving you.
Well, usually Shane.
Get some that day you need them.
Usually Shane brings it to me. There's sometimes you see a backup quarterback come in and there's a skittishness to it, right? There's a deer in the headlights. This dude does not look real comfortable. I didn't think we got that from Heinrich Haarberg.
Is this confirmation bias?
Maybe.
I don't want to have to come across the table, right? Like,
I'm willing to hear it. If you think I'm being...
I do.
Okay.
But don't let me talk you off of it.
Listen, I thought he looked like he was comfortable out there.
Okay.
Whereas you don't get that from... I'm not comparing him to Jeff Sims. I'm comparing him to other backup quarterbacks.
Okay. So, and I hate to do this because he played well, but was Tommy Hill open when he threw the ball
he missed some
close
throws
to the sidelines?
He missed some throws. Absolutely.
Okay. So what I hear is, this isn't just from you. I think we're willing to give grace to H2 because he didn't turn the ball over.
Sure, that's a huge part of it.
Oh yeah. So let's just address the elephant in the room when we're talking about assessment there. Because
we feel Sims better because he took care of
because he didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
Right. So we didn't get into Sims throwing motion or Haarberg's throwing motion like we did Sims.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get into not being able to read the field.
Yeah.
We didn't get into what did we hear about Sims after Minnesota? He can't make all the throws. What was it about Saturday night that led you to believe that Haarberg can make all the throws?
I don't think
not a goddamn thing.
I don't think that.
The thing is he didn't turn the ball over. So let's just say that.
So that's why I went with comfortable as opposed to better.
Okay. Well,
right?
I need to hear you say out loud why, because the code, it's not coded language, but you're giving people obviously listen to what we say. So I think we need to be like specific
and explicit in not
language, that's what you like the fact that he didn't turn the ball over.
And here's the thing. So did he miss throws? Absolutely.
Listen, my man, Saturday is all over.
Oh yeah, our YouTube comments are popping off today. I love it.
So I think have our YouTube comments like taken the place of Twitter?
A little bit. Our YouTube comments are crazy.
Dude, there are some reckless folks in here. Do you think I know Saturday?
I don't think so.
Do you think Saturday we could come here like after a game? By the way, I called. They shut that thing down.
They shut it down?
Man,
you got to call me and I'll get your
Well, what am I going to do? But it'll be cold.
Well, that's what, microwaves and stuff are for.
Dude,
air fryers.
Do you know what I did after the game?
What's that?
Because I didn't get home until...
Well, you didn't even leave till 10:30.
It was like 11:51 when I opened my garage.
Yeah.
I made I had some leftover sausage that I had browned, so crumbles.
Mm-hmm.
I made a little itty bitty baby 2-egg and cheese omelet.
Little omelet.
Yeah.
Hey.
I went to your boy doesn't eat on game days.
No, I know. It's
so that was a long
especially
day.
when it's a night game. You know, it's 11 a.m. start, so you can eat after.
Right?
Those night games are you're gonna lose 20 pounds on night games, man.
I'm just not using the restroom in public, and it's hard during breaks. Like, I gotta go.
Timing doesn't work well.
This doesn't work.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
And obviously you've called way more games than I have, and basketball is different from football. But I'll only go at halftime.
It's you can't get anywhere in our place in halftime.
Well, so that's the nice thing about CHI is where you're at on the floor. There's a bathroom quick shot.
Man, listen.
And JB does us a solid and has like a recorded segment during halftime.
And it's all adults. Like I'm on the grown-ups floor and 6th floor.
Yeah.
So
there's nowhere.
Everybody's thinking the same thing.
Yeah. No, you're in a bad way.
Yeah.
They almost need like a private bathroom for the broadcast teams.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I'm totally okay with saying, hey, the reason I feel more comfortable is because he didn't turn the ball over.
Right.
But I will also say part of the reason I feel more comfortable, it's not like he had a ton of turnover-worthy plays either, right? He had the one throw that he throws into double coverage, probably should have been picked off, right?
Yeah.
I didn't think he had another interceptable throw. I've watched it twice now. I'll probably watch it again today. I don't think he had another interceptable throw. Is that, from your memory and from your watching, is that right?
Yeah.
So one interceptable throw is pretty common for just about every quarterback.
Yeah. The problem with the one interceptable throw from Sims when I said he was getting better passing
is that they intercepted it.
Was that Colorado intercepted it?
Yeah, is that they intercepted. And listen, I was okay with the interception against Colorado because it was just one, and I can live with that. I can live with one interception, right? Because I don't make a difference between the Harburg throw that wasn't intercepted and the Sims throw that was. I don't distinguish between those two. Bad throws, bad calls, shouldn't have thrown that ball, right? I'm okay with that being the same thing, even though it doesn't show up the same way.
Hey, so when he threw the ball to Fedoni
on the sideline
against Colorado, Fedoni went and got it was behind him and high.
Yeah.
And Fedoni was like old school Mortal Kombat. Get over here.
Terrific catch.
Right? Was that an interceptable ball?
I don't know what was behind him. It wasn't a good ball.
How about what was next to him?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
What I'm telling you to say all this is it's a total team game.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Listen, that's fine.
That's all.
That's fine. But there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those
I love
throws.
when you tell me to listen. Listen, Linda, listen.
There's a lot of the. I thought Sims got better in terms of taking care of the ball, throwing it from Minnesota to Colorado.
Let's talk about how they mutually coexist.
Who, Harburg and Sims?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's because it's not going to be Sims versus Harburg. I can 100% assure you that.
In the sense that they're both going to play, or that they're both going to support each other regardless of who plays?
I shouldn't speak out of pocket, but is this my opinion?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm giving you my opinion. I don't think Nebraska is swayed either way by Saturday.
Oh,
I don't know if that makes you feel good or bad or.
I think the only thing that Nebraska should come away with from Harburg's performance against Northern Illinois is that they at the very least have a capable backup.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't think it swayed him as, we have a different starter now. Listen, I'm just happy to know that Nebraska has two capable guys, which is what Rhule said after the game, right? Hey, we've got two guys we feel good we can win with now, and now we know that, right? You can see a guy in practice and say, hey, I think we could win with Chuba, or I think we can win with Heinrich. But to see a guy actually go out and win is different, right? Obviously, they feel like they can win with Sims. That's why he's the starter. But that's all I took away from Saturday. I didn't go, oh, man, Heinrich has to start over Jeff Sims. All I thought was, hey, you can be okay with either of these guys.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't think so?
Yeah, but probably not for the reasons that you think. Sims can't continue to turn the ball over and you'd be okay.
Oh, 100%.
And Harburg has to be more dynamic than he was on Saturday for you to win.
I think that's right on.
Is that
both.
fair?
Yeah, and we'll get into that more. We've got all of the 9 o'clock hour open to continue to get into this and some other things. But coming up next, we've got Russell Baxter, Pro Football Guru. We're going to talk some NFL.
The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Second down and 15 now at the 35. Goff wants to throw. Steps up, throws behind. It's intercepted. Seahawks have it the other way. Trey Brown, he's going to go. 10-5. Touchdown, Seahawks. Snap back to Mahomes. Rolls to his right side. Now throws it for Kelsey, wide open in the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas City. The 47th time that Patrick Mahomes has found Travis Kelsey in the sweet nectar of the end zone. That's an all-time Kansas City Chiefs record, quarterback to a pass catcher.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. And we never have enough time on these football Mondays, but what you do need to make time for is to call Dyer Law. If you've got a personal injury situation, the Dyer Law team can help you out. You can count on them, 402-393-7529 or dyerlaw.com. That's DYER.law. Speaking of a million things we need to get to, the NFL, we've barely even touched on today. And by barely, I mean not at all. That's why we brought our guy, Russell Baxter, pro football guru, to join us now. Russell, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I want to quote an NFL official yesterday. I want to make sure of something here. Am I talking to America?
Yes. Yeah. That was great. Hey, hold on. I'm saying something important. Stop explaining your case.
that was probably the best official comment. I believe the man's name was Ben Rice in a game where somebody got called a personal foul, and he said he's giving them the business down there.
Yep.
Russell, let me ask you something. And I don't want to overreact, but it's week 2, so everybody's like, we've got a ton of opinions. Did the evaluation on Desmond Ridder, did we get it right with all the other big names and the young guys in that draft class and who's panning out and who's not? Is Desmond Ridder getting lost in the mix because he was drafted too late?
Well, he was, they are an emerging team. And, I think what I liked about the Falcons offseason this year was I really saw them make a concentrated effort to bring in quality guys in free agency, especially on the defense side of the ball.
Yeah.
And that's a team. Arthur Smith can tell you something about his years in Tennessee. And it's right, because I know this is oh my God, a quarterback-driven league. But if nobody can block for you, you get driven into the ground. Okay, so the Falcons yesterday, who put it on the Packers defense with that ground attack. Okay, and I thought Desmond Ridder made some key plays at the right time, especially in the fourth quarter. Everybody is different. Not everybody can come in and be Patrick Mahomes or Dan Marino. Some guys take longer. Daniel Jones is a perfect example. In fact, yesterday was a microcosm of his career. Okay. They struggled mightily. I mean, at one time, the Giants had played 6 quarters of football and had been outscored 60-0. Okay. And just when all looked lost, here they come. And he was a big part of that. And they wind up winning a road game at Arizona. So I'm very patient with especially younger quarterbacks and younger players, because not everybody can just jump in here and do this. The circumstances are different. You have a franchise that has not been to the playoffs since 2017. By the way, they are 2-0 for the first time since 2017. So, it's growth and taking opportunities and learning. And I'm very intrigued by the Falcons this year. And I know other people kind of latched on to them, but I thought we had a bunch. Last year, 4 of the 8 teams that finished in last place in 2021, guys, made the playoffs. 4. That's half of the last place team. The Falcons were a last place team last year. You could make a case that everybody was the last place team in the NFC South. And think about this: if you include Tampa Bay's playoff loss to the Cowboys, every team in that division lost 10 games last year.
Oof. Russell, out of the teams that have started 0-2, I'm thinking the Bengals, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Patriots, teams that maybe there were some level of expectation for. Obviously, the highest expectations would have been probably for the Bengals. Which of those teams are you the most concerned about moving forward based on these first 2 weeks?
Well, it might be Cincinnati, although let's keep in mind they were 0-2 last year and got all the way to the AFC title game.
Right.
Okay. I think there were 3 teams I did a piece for where I thought would have their issues last year. 3 playoff teams I didn't think would go back. And so one of them's 0-2, one of them's 1-1, and one of them's 2-0. Okay. The Chargers concern me. They're piling up a lot of points. And I don't know what happens to them almost situationally. And, it'd be easy to blame Brandon Staley. And of course, who have they even recovered from last year's loss to Jacksonville? When they were up 20-0, they took Trevor Lawrence 4 times. I mean, it's not like they're not taking away the football. They ran for 234 yards against the Miami Dolphins and still managed to give up 38 points and lose. So they're a bit of a mission. Minnesota's a little concerning too, but to be honest with you, I didn't have overly high hopes for the Vikings this year because of the way they played at the end of last year. I mean, I know that the Chargers stubbed their toe in the playoffs, but they were kind of playing respectable football in December last year. So, but I mean, depending on what happens tonight, you really have your pick. I mean, we could be looking at, depending what Cleveland and New Orleans do, we could be looking at 10 2-0 teams and 10 0-2 teams.
Let me ask you.
By the way, listen, that's not crazy because just 3 years ago they were 11-11.
Well, listen, as a diehard Steelers fan, I'm hoping to buck that tonight because I need for them to get to 1-1. Let me ask you something here, Russell. Can the emergence of James Cook and Josh Allen coexist in Buffalo?
I hope so because they have to. They really do. You look at rushing numbers You know, I've done a few things with stats during my career, and I'm always leery of teams. And this is not a knock on the modern game, okay? But there is a difference in wearing down a team, an opposing defense, with a running back in a running game opposed to a running quarterback, okay? And that's what the Bills have not, and I think that's one of the reasons their defense has really failed them down the stretch. You know, I looked at Miami last week against the Chargers, and the year before, Miami was fourth against the run. And the teams they really struggled against, they gave up a bunch of yards to Lamar Jackson. They gave up a bunch of yards to Justin Fields. What was concerning about the Chargers game is they gave up 117 to Austin Eckler and 91 to Josh Kelly. So they seem like they got that fixed. But Josh Allen has, you know, he is, I've heard people talk about, well, ever since Brian Daboll left, he's been more turnover prone. This just in, he's been turnover prone his entire career. Okay. And he's gifted and has a howitzer for an arm. But he committed all 4 turnovers last week in the Jets game. And a lot of people like to look at touchdowns to interceptions. You know, fumbles count too. He fumbles a lot and he loses a lot of those fumbles. So they need, remember they brought in Damian Harris from New England. They brought in Latavius Murray. They need a stable of running backs. That's what the Bills need. The Bills need a running game that is not reliant on their quarterback.
Russell, I want to ask you about the 49ers and about Brock Purdy. You don't have to. What, I guess, as you continue to watch still a reasonably small sample size of Brock Purdy's career, what do you think is real in terms of him as a quality starting quarterback, and how much of it is about the situation he's in with all the talent around him and with Kyle Shanahan as his coach?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of patience and poise with him. And some guys come into the league like that, you know, kind of like Tom Brady did, to a degree, kind of like Ben Roethlisberger did. Ben changed as the years went on, and some people would say for good and some people bad. He became the gunslinger as they opened things up for him and so on. But Purdy understands his role. He doesn't try to force the issue. You know, last week against Pittsburgh, he was not only accurate as a passer, but he didn't make a lot of runs, but he made some key runs, and knew when to run and understand the game. And I think that is his greatest strength. And yeah, they do have a lot of talented people. Brandon Ayuk is off to a tremendous start. And not only as catching the football, but that block he made last week on the Christian McCaffrey touchdown run should tell you something about that stable of talent. And they've yet to get Nick Bosa really warmed up. So, and by the way, they 2-0 and they've won 2 road games. So, you know, things look great for them. Obviously, they get the Giants on Thursday night at home. But that's what I look. When I look at young players, I look. It's the old Dan Reeves. I never let him see you sweat. Okay, I haven't seen Brock Purdy sweat yet. and that's very, very important, because if you can go to any job and pretend you know what the hell you're doing when day one, that's half the battle. And you guys know that as well as I do.
Yeah. Good stuff, Russell. Always appreciate it.
Russell Baxter, ProFootballGuru.com. We appreciate your time. We'll talk to you again soon.
You guys enjoy the doubleheader tonight.
Oh, we will. Thank you, Russell.
Hour 3 of Benning and Lulla coming up next.
We'll be back in 4 minutes. show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes.
Drops in the SU.
Johnson and
SU.
Johnson and Kemp in the backfield. Harvard. It's a pass. It's Kemp. Touchdown Nebraska. It's a pass. It's Kemp. Touchdown Nebraska.
The show
He's got a man
will
out
be
there.
back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents The Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
From the 50. They're going to go flea flicker with Blake. JJ back to pass. He's going to fire it deep. He's got a man out there. Cornelius Johnson underthrown. Tip. Oh, wow. Cornelius Johnson comes up with a 50-yard touchdown. What a juggling act. And the Wolverines extend the lead to 30-6.
Travis takes the snap, rolling left, out the flat, caught, Bell, cuts it back, 15, to the 10, Bell, to the 5, drops, in there, baby! Jaheim Bell moving across the formation and showing off his shiftiness. Touchdown, Florida State! Touchdown, FSU!
Johnson and Kemp in the backfield. Harvard. It's a pass. It's Kemp. Touchdown Nebraska.
Kicking off hour number 3 on a Monday here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla, live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are on AM 590 ESPN Omaha. We're on ESPN Tri-Cities. We are now on KFOR in Lincoln. And what you need to be on is Alumni Hall. Alumni Hall is your ultimate Husker shopping experience. Best and largest selection of apparel for the whole family, whether you need Adidas, Champion, Columbia, accessories, tailgating stuff, whatever. As always, if you're a UNL student, your faculty, or military, you always get a 10% discount in store, and you can always earn cash back with Hall Pass rewards. They've got 2 great Lincoln locations, P Street downtown or in the South Point Pavilion, or visit them anytime, alumnihall.com, where Husker fans shop. All right, we have a ton of stuff that we still need to get to. But one of the things, and listen, I'm sure a lot of these topics will carry out through the week. So, you got time. You can stay with us. You don't need to be in a hurry here. One thing I do want to talk about today, though, while we've got a little bit of room, is this was a really big recruiting weekend for Nebraska in terms of guys at the game. Obviously, Caleb was there. My guy, Anthony Rizak, was there. That's the one and I finally met DJ, his dad, after the game on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're buds now. We're thick as thieves.
He was just heading to Vandy and UNLV.
Yeah, he said he was heading out to Vegas.
Yeah.
I think Henderson, technically. But so my guy, Anthony Rizak, who I've been out here stumping for to get an offer, get that guy for my money, the best QB in the state, get my guy an offer, okay? Like,
he looks like he could fit in this offense a little
he
bit.
really does. He looks like a really good fit for kind of, you want to talk about power spread option game. I'm looking at a guy like Anthony Rizak, and so I was kind of standing at the ends a lot on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
So I can see things open up. And there was, how many touchdown runs did he have on Friday? 3?
I don't even remember. I think 3.
I think it was 3.
One was on the scramble.
Yes, but there were 2 of them on design run where you see it open up and I go, that's it. That's 6. Like before he even gets past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And he's got a skill set that I'm a huge fan of. Like I said, I think he's the best quarterback in the state.
You know what he doesn't do?
What's that?
He doesn't turn the ball over.
Doesn't lose a whole lot either.
He just doesn't turn the ball over.
Doesn't turn the ball over. Doesn't lose ball games. I don't know why you would want that as your quarterback in Lincoln, but hey, don't ask me. I'm not a football coach. I'm just a guy over here talking on the radio. But there was a lot going on over the course of the weekend, right? And you've kind of hinted at it a little bit throughout the course of the show, how whether it's with Rizak, whether it's with Caleb, whether it's a bunch of guys, where things may not always be what they appear on the surface with, okay, these guys were in, now they're out. These schools were interested, now they're not. I'm just going to give you a little bit of space to say anything you want to say here.
I just think it's interesting, right? Because
there's a lot that people don't know.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of assumptions made, like when it comes to the recruiting process, that just kind of aren't the case. I think over the last, I'd say 4 or 5 weeks, it probably started in the summer, right? Because there were some questions, and Nebraska went from, hey, we're not offering this guy, we're done recruiting him, to having an offer the next week, and that was on the local level. And so I think people were scratching their head over what happened, and some schools on some other guys, whether they're 24s or 25s, like all of a sudden coming in, and Nebraska maybe not kind of being reactionary to offer as well, because the state has been heavily recruited. And just the longer that I do this and see this, and it doesn't even have anything, it has a little to do with what's happening in our own household, but like, let's take Rizak or Christian Jones or Isaiah McMorris or Jackson Williams at Millard West. Like, it's just perceptions and like all that goes into it. There's a reason I think that, and I'm not talking about the perennial top 4 or 5 recruiting prowesses, right? It's not Alabama. This isn't Georgia. Even though, they're not foolproof either, right? Sometimes they get caught up in the narrative.
But you're talking about Power 5 teams, like power, like quality.
I just think you can tell. Like, I have a good sense on why the teams that have success are having success based on their recruiting philosophy and approach, and their approach and how they do it. Right. The schools that kind of have always been interested in guys that just wanted like proof, like those schools are still doing what they do. Schools that maybe got in early because there was a little bit of a buzz and didn't do their own homework. Some of those schools end up kind of cooling, on kids, right? Which
Sure.
isn't good either.
Right.
But whatever it is, like I kind of have a good sense on who's good with the eye for talent and development and who is kind of, it's just revealed itself. Like 20, 25 schools here that you can totally tell there's a plan.
Yeah.
Right. Oklahoma. It's a plan.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah. They know what they're looking for
Sure.
when they come to recruit the state of Nebraska. It's the reason why some of their, like McIntyre's playing.
Yeah.
Right. Helms played right. Last year. So they don't get caught up in anything than what it is. Then you just get some schools that sometimes are late to the party.
Sure.
And that'll happen, especially as guys get better as seniors. And they explain why they're late to the party. See, that works too.
Yeah.
Right?
That's that transparency thing.
Yeah, you can be a Johnny-come-lately if you're
honest.
Open and honest.
Yeah.
Just like you'll see some schools say, hey, listen, I know we were in on this guy early. It hasn't panned out to be the way that we've wanted it, turn out to be the way we wanted it. So here we are.
Yeah.
And that transparency works too.
Sure.
It's just not, it's seldom nowhere near as linear as anybody thinks.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're comfortable, I'm going to use Caleb as an example here, right? Because
sure
he can, and listen, if you want me to back off it, I'll back off it. You just tell me. So from without, giving away any state secrets or anything, from an outside perspective, this is a guy that had some offers last year, right? And some interest, and then missed a big chunk of his junior year.
Yeah.
So just from whether you're a fan, whether you're a coach, you didn't.
I mean, in full disclosure, like those first 1.5, because he didn't play in the second half against Prep, and he's really average against Grandisle. Like, I mean, the film is average.
Only okay, right?
It's average. Especially when you put it against a sophomore film.
Until
it's extremely average.
Until you get to Gretna in the state championship game last year. But so you've got very little from his junior year tape that you look at to say, hey, I know who this kid is, right? Maybe you like his makeup, maybe you like the athleticism, maybe you like the sophomore tape, but junior year, there's just not a lot of data points, right? So and if a school came and said that, I think you'd be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, that's been a lot of the last,
right?
That's been a lot of the last.
Be like, hey, we didn't know because we couldn't see it.
Couple months, yeah.
And then now we've got the tape and we feel really good about this.
And sometimes people just grow late.
Yeah,
right?
late bloomers, that's a thing.
He had, I told a couple schools in particular, and a few like actually listened because, obviously our reputation is on the line too in terms of a talent evaluation, like as coaches, right?
Yeah.
When schools come in all the time. And I said this back in April. I said, this was a couple of our guys. Christian Jones, it garners a lot of talk. So these conversations are kind of in the same vein. So, and with Caleb, I said specifically about Caleb, I said, hey, he's got 2 surgeries coming up. He's going to have his adenoids out. They grew back. They're about 2 inches. He's having a hard time. His appetite's bad. Doesn't want to eat, really can't breathe. And I said, he's the break in his collarbone. We need to shave that bone down. He's uncomfortable lifting because it catches.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So, and I said in 2 months, he's going to look
a lot different.
So we did the surgeries they were only 2 weeks apart.
Yeah. Back to back.
Yeah. We got his adenoids out, and which sucks as a 17, then he was getting ready to turn as June. Yeah. About to be 18. And then the shoulder. So, but after that, he went to work. Christian Jones is another guy where it's like, he's coming off a huge summer of like testing measurables. He won a 7-on-7 elite deal, and I think it was Under Armour. I can't remember where we went in Kansas City. I think it was Under Armour. I apologize if it's the bad shoe or a different shoe brand, but it was their camp, and And I remember this, like a handful of coaches asking me about the correlation. And I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm telling you, all those physical attributes are real.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big, strong guy. He's got a really high football IQ. I said, just give it a little bit of time. He came from a 4-3 scheme
mm-hmm.
where he just kind of got to get after the passer to a 3-4 scheme here where he's asked to do a lot more in space and in coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say complicated, but we game plan specific within our concepts. So I said he's learning a lot,
mm-hmm.
and he's real analytical.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to use a lot shorter verbiage with him. It took a while to kind of figure out what makes him tick.
Yeah.
But I said it will, because I'm not sure I'm seeing it on tape.
Right.
And I get it. You want more explosive plays, especially as highly rated as he is. I said, but give it time.
Mm-hmm.
Come watch him play now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
He just, it clicked.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the evaluation process in recruiting can go a lot of different. Some guys get in early because
mm-hmm.
everybody else did. And that doesn't sometimes work either, unless it's a can't miss prospect. So it's just nowhere near as smooth as even. And some people aren't as good at it as you'd think they are, even though it's what they do for a living.
Or as you'd hope they are.
Yeah.
And especially even with the teams that are seemingly on it, right? You mentioned 20, 25 teams that are really, they have a plan, they know what they're doing, they're trying to execute it.
Yeah.
That still doesn't mean it's super linear, right? It still doesn't mean, hey, we have to take a look at this kid. We like what we see in camp, but we need to see it on tape. Like, there's a lot of moving factors here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's people that are better at it that take all of it as data points, right? And then I think there's some people that are not quite as good at it that see a guy blow up at camp, we're going to 7-on-7 or whatever, and they're all in at that point. Whereas, like, hey, yeah, that's nice to have,
mm-hmm.
right? But what does it look like on an actual football field? Or I think sometimes, and I think we've seen this a little bit with Rhule, is if they see the physical attributes in certain guys, they're like, oh, we can teach that guy how to play football. Right. But that's the plan. Right. It's not just, hey, we assume if you run and jump and XYZ that you'll just end up being good at football. They know they have to turn them into a football player, which is different.
Yeah. And it's so weird because the perceptions a lot of times and the optics don't always match up. It's like, who's a good example? Like, let's use Ingerson for an example.
Okay.
Out of Papio.
Big tight end committed to Pitt.
He's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
Right. But depending on when you're evaluating him,
mm-hmm.
you may have a different opinion. So around here, it's, well, he's not going to Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Pitt offered first. Nebraska kind of offered after. It was reactionary. So we don't look at Ingerson as
the same type of prospect as other guys.
But he absolutely is.
100%.
Like, you look at him physically.
Yeah.
I watched him in 7-on-7 really close. I watched him change his body type. Unless you're like watching that unfold real time, he doesn't get the love that he should.
Yeah.
He's going to be a really, you watch. He doesn't need a babysitter. Like, he's going to be a really good college player.
Mm-hmm.
We said the same thing about Bramer. The tendency is here. If they're yours, we make excuses and we try to validate what it is. If they're not, we're either dismissive or we tear down. So you can't buy into that.
Well, it's confirmation bias a little bit. Right?
And it is. So, and I listen, you can, and they were in the same room all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine the level of how uncomfortable it could be with Kalen and Rizak in the same room.
Yeah.
Now, the elephant in the room is the general consensus is you don't want to take two high school quarterbacks.
I don't know where that came from.
I don't, but
it exists.
It's just a it's just a thing here,
it
right?
For sure exists.
Or what message it would send to the other. You can't worry about that.
No.
You want the best players.
Yeah,
in the fold and let them figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
having more good football players is better. And honestly, what's the difference between hey, you recruit a guy this year, and then a year from now, you bring in a transfer in the same class. How is that any different? People do that all the time.
You don't do it with and I get it, right? Quarterbacks.
There's only one. You only play one quarterback. I get it.
But we've seen that it doesn't really work out like that with quarterbacks. Like you need options. And they always leave anyway. A handful of quarterbacks on a given team are going to leave.
And you have to give yourself options. And honestly, if you're a
quarterback, you think you can't take both Bricks and Baker? Doesn't even have to be a quarterback thing.
Yeah.
If you could, you would, right?
And
you'd figure it out.
100%.
Yeah, you'd figure it out.
And competition makes everybody better.
Yeah.
At least the guys that are, it makes winners better, at least. I don't know if it makes everybody better, but it makes winners better.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think having maybe Harburg a little bit closer to Sims is good for both of them. I think it will make one of them, if not both of them, better, right? Same thing with Rizak and Kalen, okay? If those guys,
I don't know if you know this, but now there's this perception now that the local guys can't get it done. Nebraska's got to go national at the quarterback spot in order to be a competitive program.
Where's Einar Harburg from?
Yeah, I don't know. Remember, that was just like a flash in the pan.
Oh, it's because there was Northern Illinois.
Yes.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yes.
I don't. Nobody from Nebraska has ever been good at quarterback, right?
Got to figure this out.
Listen, I'm a Rizak guy. I'm a Rizak apologist at this point in terms of getting that dude an offer. I don't care if you label him as an athlete. I don't care what you do to get him in the door. Get that guy an offer because he's going to make whatever position group better. He's just going to.
And I would say he's got to be top. He's for sure. He's top 5 athletes on our team.
Without a doubt. He housed one against Bellevue West from 80 yards out with a guy with an Iowa State offer with the angle on him.
Oh,
and
Caprice,
just flew by him.
Yeah, and Keith can run.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's a big.
That's a D-back.
He's a big, strong
with
kid.
a D1 offer.
Yeah.
And Rizak just housed it right by him. So
it's just interesting, right, to be in the same. And I didn't have to deal with it because I didn't see him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see Caleb. I saw him on the field, right before the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I only saw him once all day in 8 hours.
You're working,
right?
Like you got stuff going on.
But I imagine knowing all those guys. Listen, you had Millard South, you had Bellevue West, you have West Side, and however many local schools were represented.
Yeah.
Like at that age, that can be uncomfortable.
Sure, especially not that long ago when Westside and Bellevue West just had this game, right?
And full disclosure, like the dirty little secret out there.
What's that?
Is some guys don't, given their history or whatever it is, some guys don't want to go play with other guys.
Yeah,
it's because they don't like them.
Sure. Yeah,
like that's the reality of it,
and that's
right?
real,
right? That's a real thing. So let's not act like that doesn't exist when we're trying to, when we're trying to tell people what to do or what we think they should do.
You touched on something a minute ago that kind of got the wheels turning a little bit as we're having this conversation about how, hey, when they're not committed to Nebraska, we treat them differently, right? And my thought was, and this, I'm not trying to hate on the kid or anything like that. But
that probably means that you are.
No, I'm not at all. It's an objective thing to say Daniel Kalen's not having the best year so far. That's just
yes.
There's no other way to put it, right?
Yeah.
If he was still committed to Missouri, how different is the conversation about him right now?
That's fair.
If he's not a Nebraska commit,
that's fair.
Because right now it's like, he was Elite 11. There's other stuff going on around him. It's not just him. It's a team game. He's, some of his receivers have been hurt, whatever, which is all.
By the way, that's
all true.
That was a good win for Kearney.
Right. That's a great win for Kearney. Right.
But in my heart of hearts, Fo Woodard tweeted this out during the game because I think I kind of have a good sense of what they're going through over there. And he said, hey, basically, it was my guys played hard.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the next man up philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I liked it or retweeted it, but I wanted to.
Sure.
Because I know what it's like to be in those situations where
100%.
You need everybody on board, and sometimes the optics, people are coming down on you. Listen, at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool when you can have guys rally because, Whaley didn't go, McMorris didn't go, Hall didn't go.
Like all the things that people are saying are true.
I think a rope got hurt.
Right? Like, yeah, he's been missing guys. McMorris and Hall have been in and out kind of the whole year. Like there's extenuating circumstances, right? But if he's committed to Missouri right now instead of Nebraska, the conversation is, oh man, good thing Nebraska passed on that guy. Whether they actually did or not. Whether it was, they passed or he just chose somebody else.
I know. I hear.
You know what I mean?
I get it.
And
it happens. We've heard this for. We've done this for so long.
But he's the same kid regardless.
When I said that, even when Nebraska took him, except my argument was to the other way.
Right.
I was like, remember, he's the guy that when he got away and went to Missouri, it was no big deal. He's still the same player.
Yeah, and then he comes back. It's like, oh, we got this kid.
Right? Like, so that's funny because I used it to the contrary. I was like, if he was
the same thing, it's the same dynamic.
Really good then
he's really good now.
He's really good now.
And if he
and vice versa, right?
Wasn't a big deal then it's not a big deal now. Like it can't be both. But we talk out of both sides of our mouth when players, like you said, when players are committed to Nebraska or they don't have a Nebraska offer or whatever.
The scary thing about that is you hope you're raising people in such a way where that background noise doesn't matter.
You would hope so.
But unfortunately, it kind of
hard.
does. Because the kids know.
Yeah, and they can hear it.
Out in Kearney, those guys know who they play against and who they have success against and who gets love and who doesn't. It takes a special kind of young person to not let that creep into your mindset, right?
Coming up next, we've got more of the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Yeah, we always talk about fourth quarter shutout and 75 yards rushing in the fourth quarter. That's the formula to win. It was awesome to see Javen. I think that was Javen, right? Jump up and intercept that ball. Unfortunately, I really respect their quarterback, and I hate, principles. We talk about going and blocking the quarterback, so you just have to block him with just your hands. Principal, I don't think was trying to be disrespectful to him. I really respect Lombardi, but that's kind of how we want to play at the end, right? Put some pressure on the other team, especially I've never coached in an environment like that with the crowd like that on our side, and that really affected the game, I thought too. So. But yeah, getting those rushes, finding some things. We found sort of the outside zone that was a good matchup for us, and the backs made the runs when they had to.
Here we go, last half hour on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities in Central Nebraska, and KFOR in Lincoln. We've got to tell you about Dingman's real fast. I know we mentioned
Shane does.
I know we mentioned our friend Darcy, who came out to the Blitz on Friday. I hope you guys come out to the Breakfast Blitz this Friday. But you also need to go out and see our friends at Dingman's. They've been in business for over 25 years. Dingman's Collision Center with 4 great locations throughout the metro. Voted best of Omaha, first place, 18 years running, family-owned and family-run local business, and they give back to the community with their give back program for every car repaired. Especially, they really love Epic for Girls.
That's Darcy was talking about that because she saw Zoe there.
Yeah, they get involved personally with the organizations, not just giving back some money. They go and volunteer as well, like you mentioned, Darcy did. So make sure you go check out dingmans.com to find out more about all of the things they're doing over there. Some of the things we're doing over here, getting back into the Nebraska game against Northern Illinois.
Mentioned my man Javen Wright.
Javen Wright got that interception.
It's funny too, like a couple plays before that on the radio, I was like, he's close. He's going to get one.
Well, and I talked about how on Twitter a lot of people are asking me, hey, can they get some turnovers? Are they going to get some splash plays? I'm like, I'm telling you, when you play defense this way and you're that aggressive and you're getting to the quarterback and creating that much pressure on an offense, the turnovers will come. Mm-hmm. To me, it was an outlier, still is an outlier, that there haven't been more turnovers yet because of how compromise they're making the other offense.
Isn't it something? It's almost like an anomaly. Anomaly.
Yeah. That word sounds funny.
I got some Matt Rhule lips. I got to lick my lips.
Like the Joker over there.
He said during the game that's what he wanted. He wanted a defensive turnover.
So, but it will happen.
I think
there are just too many helmets around the ball.
I think there's going to be a point where the dam breaks and there's going to be they're going to create 4 takeaways in a game because they have, you mentioned, so many hats around every single ball carrier, whether it's a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, whoever. They get hats to the ball. And you know what happens is a guy gets stood up and then you can start going after the ball, right? There's going to be fumbles. There's going to be interceptions because quarterbacks are pressured into making bad throws. There's going to be strip sacks because they're getting so much pressure on the quarterback. I fully believe this defense is playing like a defense that gets a lot of takeaways. Wow. We just haven't quite seen it yet.
So, the cool thing about that is, guys are, I think what we like the most is guys are better than the last time we saw them.
Oh, yeah.
And really, that's all we really want, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the incremental progress. But sometimes
Omar Brown is better.
Deshaun Singleton.
Singleton's better than the last time we saw.
Bayer was people didn't even know Bayer was on the team.
We didn't know how to
now he's the starting linebacker.
We didn't know how to.
I had to look it up on the Nebraska website because they give you a little audio clip of the guy saying his own name.
Yeah.
So I hit the play button. I was like, is it Gabayer? No, just Bayer, right?
Yeah.
Mekhi Bayer. This dude was, Matt Rhule said it. He goes into their office. He's like, do you guys even want me to stay? What are we doing here? And now he's the starting linebacker and makes plays. That dude is so good tackling in the open field.
He's a violent little guy. Man.
He is.
He's violent.
And so you see all these guys. I think every single guy on that defense, especially, looks better than they have at any point in their career.
And the funny thing about the defense is they can kind of go out and do it on their own, and it shows up. There's a couple of offensive guys that I think are really like that too.
In terms of doing it on their own,
they can't do it on their own, but they're much better.
They need less to go right. I know where you're going here.
Well, he's the obvious.
Anthony Grant.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, they have good players that can't do it on their own that are still good players, like Marcus Washington.
If Marcus Washington had a guy that was really comfortable in the intermediate passing game.
Marcus Washington is fantastic.
He's a really, really good receiver. I don't know that people understand that.
The most complete receiver they have. And I love Kim. I do.
Yeah. But I think he's a little more limited in what he can do.
Washington is just clutch.
Yeah. He's a big physical guy, really good, gets open. But
he's so stinking competitive.
Right now, the quarterback play isn't quite consistent enough to get him the ball consistently. It's kind of the same thing with Fedoni, right? Although we saw him start to break out a little bit in the last couple of games.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a chemistry there with Harbor.
And the cool thing, and I know people are going to look at me and laugh. I'm not sure. If I had a draft and I had to pick a guy, knowing what I know now, and I wanted to go win a game, it's a toss-up between Borkature and Fedoni.
Sure.
Borkachure's right there.
Yeah.
And I know some people, the man crush. No, just go watch him play.
No, he plays terrific.
He is a total, and he's a football player. He can play 3 different things.
Yeah. Well, on the way, honestly, the thing that I'm most impressed with, because Borkature, you expected this from. To get out there.
People told me he couldn't. Everybody told me what he wasn't.
No, so I was going to go the other way, right? On what people thought he was in terms of kind of that blocker, hard-nosed, maybe not a real skilled
We changed his number, and all of a sudden he looks more athletic, right? Now he's in that 87.
He looks like a wide receiver. Yeah. Look at him, just running down the field like a wide receiver. No, but what we expected out of Borkature was the blocking, the physicality, the nastiness, the attitude, right?
Man.
And he's got the skill set. Kind of on the opposite side of things, I've been really impressed with the way Fedoni has actually been really physical in the run game.
So I had to give him a little love. He was one of the few guys late. We're rolling out of there because I think Anthony and his mom were walking down to the garage night, and so we wanted to walk out together just so Lisa knew where she was going. And Fedoni was out there with his parents. It's late now. It's 10:30, 10:35. He's out there talking to his parents. I stopped. I said, hey, I know this doesn't mean a hill of beans, man. I'm flipping Joe Blow, but I can appreciate the grind, man. 3 years, highly competitive. Washington in high school. He goes to the same high school as my buddy's son, and when he was a freshman, Thomas was his training partner, and he talked about how intense he was at Lewis Central, and so that unbridled competitiveness, I don't want him to channel. I just want to put my arm around him and be like, hey, man, I get it. It's not necessarily you against them, but when you're that competitive, it doesn't take much to send you over that competitive edge where you hear enough, even if it's 12. Let's say it's 12 people say something negative to you. Just 12 is a small number.
Yeah.
But it's 12 too many for a guy or gal that believes in themselves. Like, he's motivated by that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that when you've missed 3 years of football and you don't want to wear the brace. You have to wear the brace. You know what you're capable of. Like, it's a lot of emotion for a young person. Sometimes we don't even handle that stuff as like adults.
Not sometimes, most of the time.
Yeah, I'm not.
Just because you're older doesn't mean you're more mature.
I don't knock Fidoni's hustle at all.
No. And honestly, I don't know how, and we've only got about a minute here, but I don't know how much people appreciate the mental, emotional, physical fortitude it takes to continue to work that hard with zero reward
it's
in
lonely.
terms of getting.
It's lonely. So it tugs at my heartstrings.
Yeah. Because he spent so long working towards something that he didn't get any reward from, right? He didn't get on the field until this year. He didn't get to play football.
And then they wouldn't let him go as much as he wanted to.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
But to have the ability, both mentally, emotionally, and physically, to continue to go through
I told him.
And come out the other side, like that's a guy you can ride with.
I'll ride with that guy.
Absolutely.
We got to get to my other guy, though.
We do need to get to your other guy.
Omar?
No, that's your guy.
No.
We need to talk a little running back room.
We do.
Okay. All right.
Because we saw the reemergence of Anthony Grant against Northern Illinois, and he looked pretty good.
He's the real deal.
We're going to have to talk about that.
I'm telling you.
A little bit next in the sports cleanup here on Benning and Lulla on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes.
I know how much energy and what that can do to a team.
We will be back in 1 minute.
Great visit so far. About to tour all the facilities. About to check out the new facility. About to race. Came for these buildings. We're confident.
And quarterback going out there full speed ahead.
We will be back in 30 seconds.
We let Heinrich spin it a little bit more than maybe we thought we would.
Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Wrapping up the show on a Monday on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We teased it a little before the break. We got to talk about, I think he's one of your guys, right? Anthony Grant.
Oh, yeah. Age easy, off the easy. Yeah, that is my guy.
You've mentioned, obviously we didn't see him at all against Colorado, right?
Yeah,
that was the big thing. That was I don't know if punishment's the right word, but it was the consequences for fumbling the ball against Minnesota, right? He looked really good against Northern Illinois.
Yeah. He's so I spent a lot of time after the game with Coach Barthel.
Mm-hmm.
We both were hungry. I'm kind of loitering because I'm super miserable.
Okay.
Right. But I'm trying to buy enough time to get home to 80 because sometimes the police don't let you on.
Yeah, they shut it down. They send you up Highway 6 through Ashland.
And of course, I didn't wait a long enough time, which was forever. I was way late leaving.
Yeah.
And I still had to take Highway 6. You don't know how I wanted to beg, but it was just too much effort. I was like, please, I just want to go home. But so anyway, though, and I'm by myself, so I'm like, it'd be a good time to just watch a little Colorado State.
Yeah.
In the old car, because I'm going about literally 13 miles an hour. But so I spent a lot of time talking to him in the players' lounge because we were both looking for something to eat, and all they had in there was really pizza. So I was like, fudge.
Not trying to get that pizza.
Nope. Did not want that. So we ended up just talking, and we just talked about growth and maturation and of the position group as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hey, you guys are starting to get some carries. And, he coaches so hard.
Okay.
Like if you watch his mannerisms, he's very matter of fact. He's a big barrel chested, he's a kind of a mean guy, right? Mm-hmm. So he coaches that way. And I was like, hey, I loved, AG picking himself up, dusting him off. And he said, hey, the little things that we're doing to prepare him to be a man on and off the field will take him very far in life, regardless of what he wants to do. It's just part of the process in terms of his growth. And I almost want to give him a hug. It would have been awkward, but that's what I love. Me, man. That's what I want for people.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's why you coach, right?
And it was like Micah. He was in the locker room on Wednesday or on Friday, and he goes, "Does Coach Samanji make up his speeches?" And I go, "I don't know. You never know what he's going to say." And he goes, "Did you hear that part where he was talking about growing into young men and the skills of being a teammate and how it'll matter in fatherhood?" Like, Micah didn't get it, but those are the people that I gravitate towards because that's really that's exactly why I coach.
Yeah.
So when somebody's saying that and they're investing in young people, like,
it speaks like right to you.
Yeah, you can tell me my kids are ugly, and I'll probably still listen after that, right? Because I probably still think you want the best for them, right? Doesn't make me ugly, but I want them to grow up to be functional.
Yeah.
So, like, I cheer for Anthony Grant, and I don't care about being right? Like,
sure,
but I do think he was their best. He's their best runner.
He's the best natural runner of the football on the team.
He's just their best runner, and people asked me during Minnesota when my man Saturday was going hard in the paint, and I respected it real time. I was like, you know what? I get it. I can't knock the hustle. I know you think I'm crazy, but I just believe he's the best. And it's no disrespect to Gabe Irvin. Anthony Grant made a cut on the 4-by and zone where he literally sprinted between two parked cars.
Yeah.
No, I'm dead serious. Like, he saw the cutback backside, and it literally was like running between two parked cars. The crease was so narrow and so quick, but he was committed to getting to it.
And he gets there quick.
So he hit it. Because I still think whether it was quarterback spot, Gabe, even AG to a little bit, they left some yards out on the field. that QB power, man, if H2 just hits that thing, just gets to the corner when Liebentritt had the, I mean, Liebentritt brings some, God, he brings some wood.
Yeah, no, he likes to hit people.
And I just wish he would have committed to it because they would have turned the corner.
Yeah.
There was another one. There were two early where I was like, ooh.
It's like he almost.
I was like, ooh, keep it. That's house call. Keep it.
Yeah.
And Grant had one in front of Northern Illinois sidelines. So I was like, ooh, if he just comes back, cuts back inside. Greg goes, it's really easy for you and I to see this up here. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. But I still feel like I would have seen it.
Yeah.
Because you just can't make a living cutting across guys' face.
Right. Not consistently.
Right? Yeah, you have to be exceptionally fast to get away with that. So it just was fun to watch those guys get in a rhythm and carry the football and start 2nd and 6 and 3rd and 1. Like those are cool. And Nebraska was so bad on first down, and they started 1 of 7.
Right.
They started 1 of 7 on 3rd down conversions to finish 8 of 14.
Yeah. That means you got to go 7 for 7 on the way out.
How about that?
That's pretty good.
Is that pretty good?
That's not bad.
Like
you would take that, right?
It started with being able to get those guys lathered up in the run game. And once again, they don't have a running back that averaged less than 4.5 yards a carry.
Yeah, I mean, out of the guys
of the true running backs,
of the 3 guys that got multiple carries, Harburg, Irvin, and Grant, they go respectively 4.7, 4.8, 6.6.
Yeah,
and that's 42 of your 44 carries right there.
You'll take it.
You'll live with that all day.
You'll take it,
right?
Did you see what Northern Illinois average per rush?
I'm looking at it right now. 1.2.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
Yeah, they had what do we have here? 22 attempts for 26 net yards. When you put but even if you take the sacks or losses out of there, it's 22 for 50.
Because Lombardi was the only one with negative yards. Yeah. Ontario Brown 8 for 16. Gavin Williams although Gavin Williams has a chance to be nice. 4 of 14. He's actually a good runner. Kendrell Flowers 3 of 10, 3 for 10, and Lampy only had the 2 for 4. You just find it, and I get it. Ethan Hampton was 6 of 8, and I get it, right? You're in DeKalb. Play Ethan Hampton. At least he was decisive. I was like, I don't know how sustainable that is over the long haul.
Well, especially, I mean, you're going against. I mean, at that point, Nebraska had put in the subs. They and listen, I get that those guys are on scholarship too. I understand it. It's the same thing we talked about last week with Heinrich Harburg against Colorado. It's almost the exact same situation, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't use that, to be fair, I didn't use that as that's why I think he's going to be good or that's why I think he'll be functional. I just used it as a fact of like, hey, I don't know what Heinrich Haarberg is going to look like, but I know what Jeff Sims has looked like, and I'd like to just see the other thing.
Yeah.
So, because sometimes that's all it is, right? When you're talking about whether it's Gabe Ervin and you want to see Anthony Grant, or whether it's Jeff Sims and you want to see Heinrich Haarberg, sometimes you just want to see the other thing so you know.
How about this? You want your mind to be blown? How about the better your ground game is, the more margin of error you have at the quarterback spot?
Absolutely.
Could that be a thing?
100%.
Can Nebraska get to the point where the running backs and the offensive prowess around them is good enough where you actually have margin for error at the quarterback spot?
Absolutely. If you can do that, it makes everybody's life easier.
But do you realize how difficult? What was the difference in Colorado and Colorado State? For all the talent on the field,
quarterback play.
What it mattered in crunch time, right?
Quarterback play.
So I get it.
Yeah.
Right. Why is Alabama struggling?
Because the quarterback.
Although the offensive line is not very good.
Not as good as it's been, but yeah. If
Beck flourishes for Georgia, do you feel a lot better about them?
Yeah, if Beck's good, then they're right back where they think they should be.
So I'm saying that knowing that those things are true.
But I think you can make the argument. You talked about Alabama's offensive line. I think you make the argument last year with Bryce Young. The offensive line wasn't very good, but Bryce Young's
he was like the human eraser.
Yeah,
I still think Nebraska looks at Sims.
Yeah.
As the eraser.
And I don't want that.
Now,
I don't want
that. But I'm with
personally.
You. I'm with you.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
But what I think is because I know what you're going to say. Well, that's fine. He can be the eraser. I just don't want as many mistakes.
Yeah. Use the erasing less. Like he could be the eraser, but sometimes you're erasing on like newsprint and you still tear up the paper anyway.
Yeah.
And that's not always. The eraser is not always what you want it to be.
Yeah.
Maybe you still have some smudges on the page. Maybe you can still see what happened underneath there. Being the eraser isn't a fix-all.
Hey, do you remember one thing that we were talking about before the season started where I was like, I'm not so sure on the second level, like who's going to start. They got a lot of guys.
Yeah.
I was a little iffy on the linebacking core because I knew there was Reimer and Nick, but I just didn't know there was so much. And I said that Coach Rhule said, hey, given how we practice, this is after spring, linebackers will have a chance to win jobs. Do you even care who's playing linebacker right now?
No.
It doesn't seem to matter, does it?
I don't care who's in the secondary.
I don't care if it's Bullock. I don't care if it's Nick. I don't care if it's Luke. I don't care if it's McHale.
A single linebacker played more than half the defensive snaps.
That's a
crazy.
Great problem to have.
They all just look.
Reimer played 29 of the 58
When he
snaps.
was in the tent, I'm like asking Jessica, I'm like, hey, what's going on with Reimer? She's like, Reimer's in the tent. Reimer's in the tent. And then he didn't come back out.
That's nothing against
Reimer. It didn't dawn on me just because of how they had the movable part. Like she had to actually tell me.
I didn't even
before I realized it.
No, and honestly, I feel about that way about the D-line too. They're just shuffling guys in and out. I barely even notice.
Yeah.
I didn't notice Cam Lenhart didn't play hardly until after the game.
Yeah, and
I was like, hey, where was that guy? He was pretty good last week.
100%.
All right, we've got way more coming up for you the rest of the week. This has been the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla on Hurrdat Sports Radio.